Alright, you and I are diving into something wild today. That's Bel getting wrecked by his brother Sen, just for not having a divine weapon. For a noble family literally famous for slaying gods, lacking that power is a massive disgrace. His little sister tries to step in, but their other sister slams her to the ground. A few days later, Bel gets kicked out for being completely useless. But hey, stories about the weak guy never end right there. One day, he actually makes his grand return and marches straight into Sarah's room, the only person who ever had his back. Face totally covered in tears, he apologizes for failing to protect her, hugging her like he just came back from the dead. She's completely confused, understanding absolutely nothing. That peaceful vibe shatters the second Sen busts into the room, rocking this super arrogant smirk. Looking for a fight like always, but our boy is standing there looking straight up like Sasuke, showing zero reaction at all. Sen asks if he wants a taste of his punch, and Bel just tells him to bring it on. This dollar store version of Gojo Satoru feels totally challenged and swings hard, but Bel is way faster and lands the first strike. The older brother hits the floor, then bounces back up furious, instantly drawing his divine weapon against an unarmed Bel. Out of nowhere, our hero summons a scabbard dripping with weird energy. Sen doesn't care though, thinking it's E-rank trash while he's holding an ultra-rare weapon. Now watch closely, the unthinkable is about to happen. Using just the empty scabbard, Bel unleashes some sinister magic, summoning a blade that chops Sen's divine weapon straight in half. The tough guy just stands there completely stunned, clueless how a blade came from an empty sheath. Absolutely terrified, he tries to run. Right at that second, our hero whips out a revolver and fires a shot that just grazes his brother's face. Sen looks back, terrified and confused, having no idea where all that intense firepower came from. What exactly are you aiming at? Shaking with pure fear, he sees the damage the gunshot caused and sprints crying to their dad, Duke Galen, famously known as the Sword King. He instantly snitches, getting his dad to hunt down Bel by claiming his brother literally made a deal with the devil. Sarah was still sitting in the room, totally shocked, watching her brother turn into a completely different person right before her eyes. Soon after, the troublemaker returns with backup, warning that Bel is completely finished. Galen walks up to the kid, telling him he broke the house rules. They just stare each other down in this incredibly tense, heavy atmosphere. The Sword King starts flexing his massive aura, totally trying to intimidate the kid. But Bel doesn't even blink. The old man draws his sword, asking if he isn't afraid of dying today. Our boy of few words just casually releases his own magic, and the kid who used to have nothing, now he's flexing multiple divine weapons. The old man sees this and freezes on the spot, struggling to understand how his useless son bagged the weapons of the greatest warriors. Flashback to the day he got kicked out. Bel gathered what little cash he had and blew it all on normal weapons. After all, basic attacks were completely useless against elite knights wielding divine gear. His big brain solution: buy one of every weapon type in existence and learn to master the entire arsenal. Whenever a monster crossed his path, he'd absolutely wreck it. Right around that time, some sketchy hooded guy appeared out of nowhere after a huge fight. I know what you're thinking right now, but trust me, this weird guy saw a true hero in him. He shoots out a blue light, leaving something jammed into the ground. Bel walks right up thinking it's a sword, but surprisingly, it's just a scabbard. It was the legendary divine scabbard, Avalon. An insanely overpowered artifact holding the signature weapons of the 5 greatest warriors ever. Bel spent years grinding hard until he reached a level where he could go toe-to-toe with a dragon, proving he mastered Avalon 100%. Mid-fight, he summons the shield of Achilles, tanking the attack easily. Then, using the storm hammer, he utterly obliterates the dragon in one single hit. Flawless victory. Now that he completely controlled Avalon's insane power, he finally decided to head back to the city and rescue his sister. 5 years after being tossed out, Bell makes his epic return. But arriving at his family's estate, the entire place is engulfed in massive flames. A brutal civil war had broken out, leaving the whole castle in total ruins. Panicking, he rushes inside the castle and spots the massive door cracked open. Pushing through, he sees the girl's body completely covered in blood. It was Sarah. He grabs her in pure panic, but she's completely unresponsive. Bell lets out this absolutely gut-wrenching scream of someone who trained for years, only to show up way too late in the end. Suddenly, an explosive blast of dark energy pierces through his chest. There was actually someone else in the room, flexing mana so crazy powerful it definitely belonged to an S-rank killer. The man recognized Bell, chillingly warning he'd see his sister real soon. "So what do you and I make of this? He died, but trust me, in Manhwa world, death is just the crazy beginning. Stick with me here." Bell stared at his hands, totally confused because he was definitely dead. Taking in the priest up front and those stained glass windows all around him, it hit him hard. He had already lived through this exact moment before. It was the ceremony from years ago. That is when it clicked. Abalin actually had the crazy power to rewind time itself. In his first life, it took him years to find that scabbard, bleeding and sweating just to master it. Now, he has the artifact right from the jump. Add 5 insane weapons to the mix, and the rules are totally flipping. Back in the past, his very first move was sprinting straight to Sarah, after crying over her dead body in his last life. Seeing his sister breathing totally shattered the guy. And then, obviously, he served a massive beatdown to his brother Sane. Then the old man spotted his legendary weapons. Just like that, the family trash became their shiny new favorite. Once the doors finally closed, Bell took a breath. The Duke's heavy pressure was absolutely suffocating. Kid body or not, he needed to grind. Ranking up fast was the goal, so it was time to hunt and soak up mana. So he headed straight for the closest woods, planning to smash some orcs. But an orc was already down, its head totally ripped off. Something was slaughtering everything in there. The local monsters never stood a chance. A lethal beast was hunting them down. Its roar shook the trees, flexing absolute dominance over the territory. For Bell, these woods held old memories. After getting kicked out in his past life, he actually spent time training right here. Still, the vibes were completely off. He had been walking forever and had not spotted a single living monster anywhere. Then something stalked him from the bushes. He quickly found the orcs, or honestly, whatever bloody chunks were left. Now watch closely, things are getting wild. Their bodies were completely shredded. While he investigated this brutal mess, a terrifying noise exploded. Bell spun around just in the nick of time to block an incoming strike. The impact blasted through his power and sent him flying through the air. This was the absolute last thing he wanted, a literal Fenrir. That explained the ghost town. A rank D monster like this big boy had totally scared off the competition. Stuck at rank E with barely any mana, Bell wanted to bail. But one look from that beast meant running equaled dying. He had to stay sharp to avoid becoming lunch. The next strike caught him off guard. This thing was crazy fast, and he barely threw himself aside to dodge it. He immediately summoned his fire-spinning pistol. He blasted several shots at the monster, but it dodged every single one. Big trouble now. His mana was dropping and the bullets were too slow. The gun was useless. Time for Plan B sword out, Bell charged straight into the beast's massive claws. He ducked the swipe and spotted a tiny opening. Bell slashed, but Fenrir actually dodged it, which totally threw him off. Now he had to rethink everything. This full-power fight could actually kill him. Normally he would squash this mutt. Instead, the furious wolf lunged again. Knowing he could not match that insane speed, Bell braced himself for a heavy block. Even so, he took heavy damage. He was getting cornered, and the beast was slowly overpowering him. The monster closed in, ready to make him a midnight snack, but Bell just got his second life. I know what you are thinking, game over. Nah, he had to summon Achilles' shield to defend and launch his counterattack. Still, the creature's agility was unreal, slamming right into his side. Bell crashed hard into the dirt, losing his shield entirely. At this rate, he was totally doomed. He was about to be dog food. Every single trick he tried had totally failed him. Even swinging his hammer would be super risky. The beast was way too quick, leaving only one weapon left. With zero options, he pulled it out as the beast lunged for the kill. Bell shut his eyes and focused hard before the fatal blow landed. He summoned Aegis, but the wolf's attack was already coming down. Then, weirdly enough, nothing hit him. A gauntlet wrapped in dark energy suddenly appeared on his hand. He never wanted to use this, but it beat dying twice. Fenrir charged again, moving even faster than before. Too bad the fight was already wrapped up. Bell had gotten insanely fast too. Gripping his hammer, he suddenly spawned right above the beast. Now the monster could not keep up at all, and that hammer was perfectly primed to crush its skull. A clean, absolutely brutal smash slammed into the creature. It screamed in agony as its teeth literally flew out of its jaw. Aegis was the gauntlet of darkness. It cranked the user's physical stats up, but flooded their brain with a crazy voice screaming to destroy everything. The wolf survived and was even more pissed off. Meanwhile, Bell was only getting beefier by the second, and his urge to kill was skyrocketing. He eagerly waited for the mutt's next lunge. He easily dodged every attack. The wolf was officially outmatched. You and I both know Bell is starting to absolutely love this beatdown. Stick with me here, guys. The wolf dropped dead fast, and Bell was honestly just glad that cursed weapon didn't drag him straight into the darkness. Now he had to figure out why a Fenrir was even in this forest. But then, he noticed something seriously weird about his hammer. It was absolutely pulsing with energy. By taking down the Fenrir, it absorbed all its stats. Farming high-level bosses beats grinding weak mobs any day. He seriously couldn't wait to test this out. Later on in the castle garden, Sarah spent the whole afternoon chilling under a tree. Finally, she finished her little flower crown. She hoped Bell would love it, but someone suddenly snatched it away. The bully mocked it, saying it perfectly matched the dirty kid who made it. Enter the absolute worst, Jessica. She looked over at Spencer, who instantly agreed with her. He was such a yes man. Jessica tossed the crown, and Spencer literally whipped it to pieces. Sarah hated it, but she was totally helpless. Jessica was bored out of her mind and wanted some sick entertainment. Gun in hand, she told Sarah to come along. Time for some target practice. She fired straight at the kid, and Sarah just froze in pure terror. Bam! Bell blocked the shot with his sheath, offering to play with Jessica instead. Sarah was completely stunned by his sudden entrance. Bell added that he wanted to test his divine weapon. Jessica had no clue who she was dealing with. To her, no half-blood had the right to block her path. Bell focused on calming Sarah down first, promising her that she was completely safe now. Then he turned to face the spoiled brat. Spencer stepped up, looking all threatening. Knowing he was just Jessica's lackey, Bell stared him down with pure noble pride. But Spencer flat-out refused to respect a concubine's son. Yeah, that seriously ticked Bell off. Jessica laughed, saying he just got lucky beating Sane. They figured Sane was sloppy, and since Bell only used a sheath, they thought he was absolute trash. Now watch closely, things are about to escalate. Bell closed his eyes and told her to observe. Spooked, Jessica ordered Spencer to finish him instantly. He gladly accepted. Everywhere his whip hit literally turned into solid ice. Bell, yeah, he wasn't impressed at all. Spencer was a rank D paladin, and his divine weapon was literally a freezing ice whip. On paper, he outclassed Bell, who was only rank E, but Bell is built different. Spencer bragged that he was going to freeze Bell's legs first, then his arms and body until he was totally stuck, ending it by smashing his face with the whip. Bell cut him off, basically reminding him he was just an irrelevant background character. Spencer snapped back, warning him not to underestimate a higher rank. Then he launched a strike, fully ready to turn Bell into a giant popsicle. Bell dodged it with zero effort. Jessica literally couldn't believe it. Spencer might be a decent rank D paladin, but to Bell he was nothing. Thanks to his past life training, this was child's play. Sarah watched, totally amazed. Her brother was basically dancing out there. Spencer got even madder, screaming that Bell was just running away. So, Bell decided to prove he definitely wasn't running. From now on, he promised he wouldn't dodge at all. That insane confidence was shocking. Bell wanted to see if the loudmouth could deliver. Spencer charged in, swearing to freeze Bell solid this time. The whip slashed right into Bell. After a few heavy hits, Sarah was terrified. Suddenly, the ice spread out, completely freezing his limbs. Once Bell was totally stuck, Spencer geared up to smash his face in. But Bell just smirked, asking if that was it because now it was his turn. That completely stopped Spencer in his tracks. Bell called out Ragnarok. His sheath glowed, revealing his gun. Spencer was absolutely mind-blown that Bell had a second divine weapon. Bell poured his mana out, shattering the ice as blazing flames erupted from the gun. In the very next second, he was completely free. Jessica was totally stunned. I know what you're thinking. 2 divine weapons is insane, right? Wielding both simultaneously broke all the rules. Now it was payback time for their arrogance. Bell fired off blazing hot shots at Spencer, who instantly realized he was in massive trouble. He desperately tried to block with his ice whip, completely covering his body in thick frost. He thought that would stop the flames, but Bell knew better. The fire raged on, and the bullet punched right through the ice effortlessly. Spencer could only stare in pure horror. The burning shot slammed into his chest with crushing force. It didn't pierce through, but the damage was massive. He dropped to the floor while Jessica watched, utterly paralyzed. That insane attack shattered the ice and completely dropped a rank D paladin. Jessica was only rank E, so she knew she had literally zero chance now. Bell slowly turned toward her. He flat out told her it was over. Panicking, Jessica summoned her divine weapon. She screamed at him to stay back, but she was so terrified her hands were violently shaking. She just kept firing wildly, missing every single shot she took. Then she straight up started begging him not to come any closer. Her legs totally gave out on her, and she collapsed to the ground in pure, unfiltered fear. Bell stopped right in front of her, which honestly just terrified Jessica even more. He easily could have ended her but just warned her to avoid Sarah. She completely bolted. That's where we leave it, trust me. Nobody messes with his sister. All right, stick with me. Sarah rushed to her brother, worried about the whipping, but Bell just called the guy weak. When she praised him, Bell said he leveled up just to protect her. Then he handed her a brand new flower crown to replace the ruined one. She placed it right on Bell's head, thanking him for always having her back. A simple gift from his little sis. And right there, Bell swore the whole country would one day respect her kind heart. The issue? People constantly looked down on concubine kids. Proving his real worth was gonna be an uphill battle. He needed absolute respect. To get that, he had to make a big move right away. Outside the palace, the Duke was in deep meditation, sword in hand. The guy's focus was totally off the charts. Suddenly, he launched a few clean slashes, slicing the falling leaves in half. Only then did he notice Bell standing right there. He asked what the kid wanted. Bell said he came to ask for permission. Curious, the Duke replied, "Permission for what exactly?" Before dropping the news, Bell took a knee. That intense level of respect definitely caught the Duke's eye. Bell asked to take the rank C exam. That wild request definitely hooked the Duke. Bell claimed he wanted to serve the king for their family. Their noble house had strict royal duties, like escort missions and heavy-duty monster hunting. And pulling that off was the absolute fastest way to level up his family status. Crushing hard quests would earn him royal fame, but to grab those elite jobs, he had to pass this test. The Duke saw the kid was dead serious, but straight up told him it was way too early. Bell needed to become a real paladin before even dreaming of rank C right now. He was just a rank F newbie who barely got his divine weapon. Watch closely here, because things are about to shift. The Duke told him to aim for rank E, but Bell whipped out a massive fang instead. The Duke recognized it instantly, a legit Fenrir fang. He immediately demanded to know where Bell got it. Without a word, Bell summoned his divine weapon. His epic hammer literally sparked with lightning. Bell joked that the fight was rough, but he tamed the stubborn dog. Seeing the electricity, the Duke realized Bell was using elemental attributes. By defeating a rank D beast, Bell totally qualified for rank C. The Duke finally agreed, but on one condition. Bell must never disgrace the family name. Confident, the kid promised he wouldn't. At the exam site, he saw tons of applicants waiting. The rank was a massive wall, and honestly, most guys never broke through it. Our boy quickly grabbed everyone's attention. The rest of the crowd were full-grown adults, while he was literally just a kid. Unbothered, Bell marched to the desk. The receptionist asked who he was and if his dad was around. She was totally stunned when he said he was taking the test. She told him to come back later, but Bell said stop treating him like a baby. He was a legit paladin too. Suddenly, some random guy walked up and told him to stop faking it. We all know an arrogant guy like this, right? He told Bell to leave, and honestly, Bell already found this dude incredibly annoying. The crowd knew exactly who he was. His name was Lennox, and his wind sword could drop 8 slashes in a single strike. His power was top tier with crazy hype. Lennox scoffed, saying the kid had to match him first. Bell didn't care about his clout, and Lennox doubted he even had a divine weapon. Bell just tapped his waist and said it was right there. Seeing only an empty scabbard, Lennox busted out laughing, mocking that no one could actually fight with total trash like that. The rest of the guys joined in, roasting Bell's gear and acting super glad they weren't anywhere near that pathetic. Lennox smirked, saying he didn't care if some clueless brat wanted to get himself killed. But it ticked him off that Bell taking the test made them look like equals. Walking away, he told the little trash to go cry to his mommy. Once that drama ended, Bell told the lady to register him. She asked if he was totally sure, but he didn't even blink. To enter, he needed a referral from a rank B knight or higher. Plus, he had to be at least rank D, but with the right letter, he could easily bypass that rule. She figured nobody would vouch for a kid, but then she read it. It was stamped by the Duke of Catastrophe himself. That's the exact second it hit her. The little boy standing right in front of her was the Duke's own son. Shortly after, all the candidates grouped up in the arena for the main event. The instructor started breaking down the rules. First, they'd warp to a dungeon. They had 5 hours to grab a light jewel and bounce. Only 3 existed inside, and anyone who brought one back would instantly pass. Lennox was absolutely certain one of those spots belonged to him. Everyone else was sweating bullets while Bell just felt embarrassed. After the breakdown, the instructor asked if they were ready. The group nodded. Now, trust me, you'll want to see what happens when Bell finally hits that teleport pad. The room flashed and bam. Stick with me, we are dropping straight into the dungeon cave right now. Everyone got totally scattered across the first floor, leaving our boy Bell to pick his own path. This dungeon was massive, but he had time to kill. Since he was here, he planned on milking it completely. More monsters meant racking up way more mana. He gripped his weapon, dead set on hunting every single thing breathing down here. Meanwhile, the other candidates were already getting wrecked. These monsters were way beefier than anybody expected. Those fierce-eyed lizards alone were enough to terrify the weaker fighters. But Lennox, he honestly could not understand why people struggled against such easy prey. He dropped them with a smug smirk, acting like it took zero effort whatsoever. As others watched in absolute awe, he just kept slaughtering. Completely drunk on the hype, he bragged about not being average like them. He even complained the test was totally boring. The weaklings followed him for protection, while Lennox called them lucky to witness his raw talent. To him, they were just useless baggage. After pushing deeper into the dungeon area, the squad found a massive boss room door. Lennox was really hoping for something actually entertaining inside. Now watch closely here. Instead, they found D-rank monsters guarding the altar jewels, and one started charging straight at them. Lennox stepped right up, completely confident he could slice this thing to pieces. He unleashed a literal storm of slashes, but the monster tanked it with zero damage. Then it struck back. For the first time, Lennox was pushed back. The hit totally threw off his balance, leaving him stunned. His attacks did absolutely nothing. The others could not believe it. Pure panic set in as the rest of the horde turned. Club Guy started swinging wildly just to stay alive. One solid hit confirmed it. Normal physical attacks were completely useless here. Meanwhile, the girl was barely surviving against a flying beast. It kept shooting blade feathers from a distance. Lennox finally realized how insanely brutal this final stage was. These monsters literally countered specific divine powers. Against this patched-up freak, he was 100% defenseless. Frozen by fear, he closed his eyes waiting for game over. But before the hit connected, the monster shattered. You and I both knew Bell would show up to save the day. Any later, and it was game over. He was just having fun hunting, but Lennox recognized him in a heartbeat. It was that total trash from earlier. When a monster immune to physical attacks rushed Bell, our guy just casually switched tactics. For this guy, a sword was the right call. Lennox watched, completely speechless, as Bell's divine weapon literally transformed. Bell one-shotted the creature in a single strike. Then he turned to the flyer. He had the perfect rapid-fire weapon for that too. He filled the flying beast with bullets, dropping it instantly. Everyone else just stared. The useless scabbard kid was actually the strongest. Lennox literally could not comprehend Bell having multiple divine weapons, and this crazy level of mastery. Not wasting time, Bell quickly wiped out the remaining monsters. The arrogant knight could only watch, totally shocked a kid was this epic. Unfazed, Bell just kept casually dropping monster after monster. With the room secure, he walked up to the altar and grabbed his jewel. The other two ran up hyping him up, which honestly just annoyed Bell. A second later, they showed their true colors and completely trashed Lennox. To them, he was now totally inferior to Bell. That fight totally shattered Lennox's pride. Meanwhile, those two decided to snatch the remaining jewels. Bell ignored them and just summoned his hammer. He had his jewel, now it was time for some real fun. Boom, he completely smashed the altar. The followers froze, screaming about what he did, before realizing the other jewels were totally gone. Holding the absolute last one left, Bell basically dared them to take it. He called them useless parasites feeding off others' talent, the kind who ditch people once they stop being useful. To Bell, fakes like that had zero right to be called real knights. Getting roasted by a kid destroyed their pride. After that, Bell just casually left them behind. Makes you think, right? That massive reality check actually humbled Lennox for good. He owned up to his arrogance, accepted his total weakness, and thanked Bell, but swore he wouldn't stay a loser forever. Bell was genuinely shocked by this brutal honesty and the fiery determination still burning deep inside him. They agreed to meet again someday. Outside, Bell was absolutely pumped. He finally ranked up to a C-tier knight, and all those monsters he wrecked gave him a massive mana boost. Stick with me. We're about to watch him finally earn respect at home to protect his sister. With that hype in mind, he headed straight back to the Duke's estate to share the epic news. But when he arrived, the Duke was locked in a super important meeting. The top knights were discussing a plot against the Meldia family. 3 B-tier paladins were closing in, and the Duke's house had to take them out. Apparently, another noble family had already suffered because of them. There were even crazy rumors that these paladins used forbidden magic on their weapons. The B-tier squad totally understood their lethal mission. The Duke ordered them to stop Karma from operating, demanding an immediate wipeout. Then, one knight noticed someone missing. Jin wasn't there yet. Right at that exact second, a young guy dropped a book on the table and casually asked what the meeting was about. Every single head instantly snapped toward him. He chilled out and said there was literally nothing to discuss. He, the future Duke, had already solo wiped that entire organization himself. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a maid brought a meal to her lady, letting her know dinner was served. Sarah sat at the table and super sweetly thanked the maid for her hard work. The woman just bounced without even caring about the thanks. Sarah looked insanely miserable. She stared at the food with zero interest. Then Bell casually walked right in. He looked totally thrilled to see her, and Sarah instantly lit up. She admitted she was super worried not knowing where he went. Bell explained he had some important business and brought her gifts. He laid out a whole feast on the table. Sarah was stoked about the apple pie and wanted to share it, but Bell couldn't just sit back and enjoy the moment. This was the same trashy food she always got, all because even the servants totally looked down on a concubine's kids. You and I both know this only fueled his drive to level up. Meanwhile, back in the meeting room, the intense discussion was still going strong. The Duke was seriously blown away seeing his son defeat Karma completely solo. This basically proved Jin had already hit a tier. Clearly, his oldest boy was just built different. Jin sat down and asked if his dad had anything else to say. The Duke definitely did. The king had handed their family another major quest. They needed to safely escort Princess Rilke Scherdaballen. She was passing near the duchy, and they had to guarantee she reached her destination alive. One knight questioned if the royal guard wasn't already enough protection. Another pointed out that the royal family probably didn't know Karma was wiped out yet, so the absolute safest route would be straight through Rakata. While they argued, someone else crashed the room. Bell told them to hold up before deciding anything. That instantly grabbed everyone's attention, and the knights recognized him immediately. It was Bell. The Duke honestly couldn't hide how incredibly hyped he was about his kid's crazy talent, so the exam was basically a wrap. Bell flashed his brand new certificate, confirming he was officially C-tier. Hitting that rank at his age was straight up mind-blowing. The Duke then asked why he dared to interrupt their meeting. Bell said he wanted to pitch a totally different route for the escort quest. One knight was super weirded out that a kid was giving advice. Bell explained that the monster-free Rakata route actually attracted bandits, making it a 3-day trip, so he suggested another way. Despite the obvious danger, Belle knew the local monsters perfectly. Most of them were just chimeras and dark horrors. Since both types hunt at night, traveling by day would be way safer. Plus, it cuts the trip down to 1 day. The knight totally admitted Belle was right on the money. The Duke noticed Belle's insane confidence and his hardcore monster knowledge. You saw that coming, right? Belle desperately wanted the job and promised to protect the princess, leaving the Duke completely stumped. Then Jin finally stepped in, and the whole room went dead silent. He furiously demanded to know why this mutt was speaking in front of them. His killing intent was so overwhelming that even the grown knights literally froze in fear. Belle had almost forgotten just how totally terrifying his older brother's aura actually was. Still, he absolutely refused to back down. He summoned his divine weapon, saying he was dead serious. He confidently promised he could safely escort the princess, no matter what crazy stuff happened. Jin smirked and asked if Belle actually thought he could stop him. Belle replied that a knight always keeps his word. Jin completely lost it, screaming at him to shut his mouth, acting like Belle's words were a massive personal insult to his pride. That's when Razor, Jin's personal secretary and basically a guaranteed B-tier paladin, aggressively stepped right up to the plate. Jin, clearly amused by the drama, ordered his secretary to test Belle's limits. Razor instantly summoned his divine weapon, totally ready to crush the kid. So what do we take from this? He fully intended to teach this concubine's kid a brutal lesson. Stick with me, guys. Even standing completely still, Belle is hyper-aware. The secretary rushes in swinging. Belle realizes this is gonna be way tougher than he thought, but still blocks it, totally shocking Razor. Jin looks super smug. Belle is fast, sure, but beating a B-rank paladin, not happening. Then the Duke steps in, stopping it. He straight up assigns Belle to the escort mission. Razor asks if he is actually serious, especially with all that karma out there. Thanks to Jin, the Duke calls this the perfect first real mission for Belle. Belle bows and says thanks, promising he will not mess this up. Meanwhile, Jin watches the kid with a super shady smile. Next stop for our boy, the royal palace. It is his first time here, so he just walks right up. The guards instantly block him like, bro, you cannot just enter. Belle introduces himself, flashes his paladin badge, and says he is here for princess duty. They cannot believe a kid this young is already C-rank, once they verify his identity. They let him slide. The guards still seriously doubt he can protect royalty, but Belle stays locked in. The royal carriage finally rolls up. She checks him out and calls her bodyguard Lindo. Then she apologizes, totally flexing that she probably will not need him. Now watch closely. Somewhere else, a guy on a throne asks if the princess left. He knows the Duke sent his kid along with the guards. The boss heard Belle is literally just a child right now. So he figures the kid must be crazy talented. He tells his servant to stay sharp and use the secret weapon. The guy flashes hidden blades. His whole vibe is silent assassinations. Meanwhile, the carriage just keeps on rolling. Inside sits the princess, Belle, and guards. Seems like an easy gig, but winning here helps his sister. Just one huge problem. Belle feels totally awkward because he is clearly unwanted. Trying not to sound rude, he asks why she basically said he was useless. She pauses, saying she hates relying on people. She has her own divine gear and is definitely not helpless. Belle quickly realizes her pride is off the charts. The princess goes back to window shopping. The city continues its totally normal routine. Something about that sparks real joy in her. Belle actually loves seeing this side, but his staring makes her super uncomfortable. He apologizes, saying she reminds him of his sister Sarah, who would probably react the exact same way. The princess asks if they are tight. Belle says absolutely, they hang out all the time. Since Sarah is young, they play simple games. The princess admits she has siblings too, but trusts absolutely none of them. Belle guesses it is toxic succession drama and actually feels bad for her. He tells her his own home is honestly no different. His brothers bully him for being a concubine child, and without his mom, they have zero protection. That definitely gets her attention. He says he gets that feeling, offering a shoulder to lean on. She shuts that down instantly. She refuses to depend on anybody, especially him. She snaps that he knows nothing, and pretending otherwise is mad disrespectful. You know what is coming, right? Someone is creepily watching the road. By dusk, they hit their destination. The trip totally drained the princess, but the gates finally open to welcome them. Even so, she has zero clue who this guy greeting her is. He introduces himself as Peter, a local knight, super hyped she arrived. Belle knows the name but just cannot place the face. It also feels super sketchy getting welcomed completely outside the city. While the ambush squad gets ready, her escort waits outside. Surrounded by guards, Belle suddenly senses major danger. Bam, a flying dagger. Seeing her totally exposed, he instantly pops his divine gear to shield her. The princess and her guards are caught completely off guard. An assassination attempt is officially underway, and she is the absolute target. More daggers fly, turning this into a massive crisis. Peter jumps in too, blocking strikes with his sword. He swears nothing will happen to her. Watching him fight, Belle guesses Peter is B rank. The assassins randomly bail out early. Peter sends knights after them. Belle waits outside. Trust me, you want to see what happens next. Let's dive right into this crazy mess. Before stepping inside, she glances back, totally spooked. They tell her she's safe, but she swears she can protect herself. A knight swears to defend her, but gets completely wrecked. Horrified, the princess finally gets it. Peter did it. The threat was standing right beside her the whole time. He just stares at the fallen guard, a completely pointless death. The princess has no clue what's coming. Peter calmly tells her she's going to be dead in just a few seconds. For all her big talk about defending herself, she's completely frozen. Peter slowly creeps closer to her. She's way too terrified to even summon her divine weapon. Flashing this totally sick smile, Peter finally drops his nice guy act completely. Right now, the princess seriously needs a hero. Suddenly, smash. The window shatters into pieces, catching Peter totally off guard. One of his guys gets wiped out, and crashing the party is Belle. Literally the last dude either of them expected to see. Belle drops a quick sorry for being late, steps through the broken glass and looks at her. Then he tells her to chill, he will handle the rest. Peter fully expected those guards outside to fall for his trap. He never thought Belle could actually step up, right until Belle finally remembers exactly who this guy is. Now pay close attention here. Belle calls him out by his real name, Von Riegel. Peter is absolutely stunned that some kid knows his secret. Belle even lists off the exact specs of his divine weapon, 2 sets powered by 3 thunder dice. Using that gear, he's already wiped out multiple counts and even clapped a marquee. Totally freaked out, Peter demands to know how Belle figured all this stuff out. Well, in his past life, Belle was the guy who brought Peter to justice, so he literally knows everything. He never expected Peter to target the princess this time around, but now that he did, Belle is not letting him slide. Even as a kid, he's making Peter sweat bullets. Peter smirks, admitting things are actually getting pretty interesting. But he still thinks no kid can beat a tier B paladin. For normal people, sure, that's impossible, but going up against Peter, Belle doesn't have a single drop of doubt. Super annoyed by the cockiness, Peter swears he will make Belle regret this. Belle already knows Peter's first move is tossing his weapons. Right on cue, Peter unleashes this massive rain of daggers. Bell just casually dodges every single one of them. He's fully prepped because he knows the hidden attack is next, a diagonal slash from the right. Peter is totally mind-blown that nothing hit, but Bell already knows the guy is going for a back attack next. His hand is already in position to summon his divine weapon. The sword spawns perfectly on time, blocking the surprise hit. He downloaded Peter's entire attack pattern. Peter is losing his mind trying to figure out how this brat keeps up. We both know Bell can end this whenever, so he tells Peter to just surrender. That just makes Peter even more pissed. Feeling totally clowned on, he swears to rip the kid apart, but getting mad just makes him way too predictable. He spams attacks over and over, but literally every swing misses. The princess is just watching, totally amazed. Bell looks tiny, but he's handling a pro assassin like it's a walk in the park, shutting down every strike. Watching him style on this guy, the princess realizes she misjudged him completely. Then, the ring on her finger starts to glow. Bell runs out of patience and says he is wrapping this up right now. His next counterattack lands perfectly. Peter actually takes damage and is forced to rethink his whole game plan. He realizes Bell is reading him like an open book. Just like his boss warned, this kid is either incredibly gifted or hiding something way crazier. So Peter knows he cannot afford to mess around anymore, deciding to play his ultimate trump card. Bell sees it coming from a mile away. Peter is about to trigger his light barrier skill. Even so, Bell casually drops that a shield will not save him. Peter just brushes that off as pure kid arrogance. Then he cracks open this tiny vial. Even knowing what it is, Bell tenses up. It holds Dragon King tears. Peter smashes it on the floor, and the buff hits his body like an insane power stim. It's a super rare drop that massively boosts the user's mana for a short window. Peter mocks him, saying Bell is going to seriously regret dropping his guard. He throws those daggers again, but this time, the power level is nuts. Bell actually has to be careful now because the blades completely surround him. They float midair, totally locking down his exits from every angle. Peter thinks he's finally secured the win because Bell is straight up trapped inside this massive cage of light. The raw force actually lifts Bell right off his feet. The princess watches in panic. Bell pops his shield and tries to break out. He pours his energy into shattering the cage, but the wind blast just isn't enough. And guess what? Peter is not even done yet. His daggers spark with intense electricity. That energy surges right through the barrier, violently shocking Bell. Peter says it's over, but you and I know our boy isn't losing here, right? All right, jump in with me. Out of nowhere, arrows rip through the room, smashing the daggers and totally shattering that barrier. That is when Peter finally gets it. The princess had actually summoned her divine weapon. Bell was risking his life for her, and she refused to stay frozen in fear. Of course, her stepping up just makes Peter even more furious. He lunges right at her to finish the job. The princess freezes up again, but honestly, Bell only needed that tiny bit of help. Too late, Peter realizes he is in serious trouble. Bell hits him with one deep, crazy clean slash. That was all it took. Bell wins. Peter faceplants and completely stops moving. Catching his breath, Bell asks if the princess got hurt. She just looks at him looking totally sad but stays completely silent. Instead, she steps right up to him. Gently touching his face, she points out that he is the only one in the room actually bleeding. She apologizes, feeling super guilty for dragging him into her crazy royal succession battle. Bell brushes it off, saying he is fine and definitely strong. She smiles, replying she is not nearly as strong as her bodyguard. Super grateful, she promises that if he ever needs backup, she will protect him. Bell drops to one knee, thanking the princess with pure respect. Looking at him with straight-up admiration, She pulls a ring off her finger. She hands it over as a sign of deep gratitude and friendship. Belle knows exactly what this is. This ring is no ordinary little gift. The crazy mission is finally over and everyone is alive. Heading back home, Belle is immediately brought before the Duke. Now watch closely here. The Duke gets the full mission report. Belle claims everything went perfectly, but the Duke can completely tell there is more to this. Right in Belle's hand is the Ring of Solomon, a massive gift from the princess proving she totally trusts him. This thing is a literal royal family treasure, an insanely powerful mana artifact. The Duke is honestly mind-blown that Belle scored something so valuable. Suddenly, he is way more impressed than before and cannot even hide how hyped he is. He tells Belle he is getting enrolled in Athena right away. Belle was absolutely not expecting that curveball. Athena is this elite paladin academy for nobles. His family usually hires private tutors, so only potential actual heirs get sent there. Just like that, Belle is officially in the inheritance race. The Duke orders him to keep training until classes start, but Belle is not done talking yet, making his dad ask what else is on his mind. Standing totally firm, Belle says he has one specific request to make. Next thing, the doors swing open. Belle is outside the hall with his wildly excited sister. She cannot believe this massive space is actually her new room. Even the bed is incredibly comfortable. With the Duke's approval, they move to the main house to get proper respect. His sister is super hyped, but then she spots something weird on his hand. There is a small cut right there. He brushes it off, saying he got scraped during his last mission. That definitely makes her a little worried, but she bounces back fast. They go back to playing, which totally boosts his mood too. I know what you are thinking, happy ending, right? Wrong. His sister is safe, but he knows a huge, terrible disaster hits in 5 years. She could easily be in deadly danger again, so he desperately needs answers and has to hunt down whoever causes it. To pull that off, he absolutely must become the family heir. Later on, one of Jin's servants shows up to report and waits for permission. Jin does not even bother looking up from his epic painting. Still totally focused, he listens to the servant report that his illegitimate brother is heading to Athena Academy. Nobody has gone there since Jin himself, so the servant totally assumes they need to crush Belle right away. But Jin could not care less. Tossing his brush aside, he basically says his brother is zero threat right now. Actually, Belle leveling up might even help him, because Jin enjoys something way more twisted than just winning. The servant looks completely confused, so Jin reveals his truly messed up personality. He loves crushing people only after they have reached their peak potential, just so everything plays out exactly how he wants. Even hearing that villain speech, the servant thinks this is too dangerous. Belle has divine weapons and literally clapped a B-rank paladin. Just to be safe, the servant feels they really need to strike right now. Meanwhile, Belle is outside training hard. He wants to max out his special skills before hitting the academy. The catch: he needs to hunt tons of monsters to do it. Suddenly, in the reflection of his blade, he catches Jin's servant sneaking up. He instantly goes on high alert. The guy walks over and actually speaks super politely. That is literally the last thing Belle expected from an enemy servant. Knowing exactly whose side this shady dude is on, Belle flat out asks why he is there. The guy claims he is here to apologize for pointing a sword at him earlier. But trust me, you and I both know this dude is plotting something wicked. For a second, Belle honestly wondered if this guy was actually decent, telling him not to overthink the whole thing and just chill. The servant thanked him for being so understanding, but wait, there was something else. Stick with me here. Belle kept his sword ready as the dude invited him on a monster hunt. A seriously weird offer, right? He explained that Jean and the other paladins were totally tied up elsewhere, claiming he wanted to help Bell level up after seeing his skills. Yeah, super shady invitation. Bell couldn't just say no, but his guard was way up. He agreed, while the servant smiled warmly, secretly plotting his total assassination. Bell asked where they were heading. The answer, a super remote spot called Ica. Bell knew exactly what that meant. He'd almost forgotten about it. That place was absolutely perfect for a special little mana boost trick. Ambrosia could permanently buff him. Soon the carriage rolled out. Inside, Bell planned to hunt down that ambrosia, though grabbing it meant sneaking into a totally hidden dungeon. Luckily, our boy knew exactly where one spawned near the city of Etica. Arriving there, it was already pitch black out, so they grabbed a room before the servant dropped the mission details. Their targets were a pack of leviathans. A bunch were spotted nearby, clocking in as rank C monsters. Since it was crazy late, they'd start at dawn after catching some sleep. Bell dipped out to his room. Walking upstairs, the servant watched him like a hawk. "Watch closely, guys." This dude thought Bell was clueless about his trap, fully planning to make his brutal murder look like a total accident. No matter his talent, being rank C made Bell easy prey. Back in his room, our guy figured Razor was probably already out cold. He summoned his shield, casting wind magic right onto it as he slipped through the window. The gear morphed into a flying hoverboard, cruising straight toward the hidden dungeon deep inside the monster forest. He and his master found it ages ago, keeping the location completely off the radar. Landing smoothly, the shield vanished as Bell spotted the tiny entrance. Assuming this was the spot, he walked in. Soon enough, he found a massive door, exactly his target. Hidden dungeons are split into blue rank A and green rank B. Clearing them drops sweet ambrosia of that level. This loot would be a massive help, so Bell stepped up. But first, boss fight time. He challenged this place at rank D before, ignoring his master's warnings. It might still be rough now, but fear wasn't about to make him back down. He reached out for the door. Crossing the threshold, one single thought locked into his brain. I know what you're thinking. He needed crazy power fast. Inside, he's already throwing down. At first, it didn't look too bad. Bell watched the Phantom Knight closely, totally ready to charge in again. The enemy's strikes were fast and sharp, but Bell kept blocking. Defending like a pro, he found an opening and slashed the exposed knight. Even so, the hit barely registered. Instead, the clash knocked Bell backward. Needing different gear, he pulled out his hammer. He landed a super solid smash, but the creature took 0 damage. Basic attacks just couldn't crack that heavy armor. Time to switch up the tactics completely. Swapping back to his sword, the blade lit up. He went in with magic attacks, landing hits perfectly, but the armor still wouldn't shatter. He'd never faced anything like this absolute tank, and being stuck at rank C made it worse. The Phantom Knight shoved him back. Cornered hard, Bell needed a big brain play fast. If that armor was so insanely tough, it had to have a blind spot. A bullet coated in pure mana, that should totally do the trick. Throwing Fire Spitter into the mix, he charged up the blast while the Phantom Knight kept advancing. Only 2 seconds left. The enemy stepped right into striking range. Just before the axe dropped, the charge finally maxed out. Bell blasted the armor and boom, it actually worked. The explosion completely shredded the metal, dropping the monster dead. The massive recoil knocked Bell straight to the floor too. Catching his breath, he sighed. So that was the weakness all along. A magic blast heavy enough to pierce straight through. Without his literal god-tier weapon, he would have been totally wrecked here. If a basic mob was this hard, the final boss was pure nightmare fuel. Still, hidden dungeons were totally worth the grind since these mobs drop crazy, rare loot. Chugging a potion right away, his stamina and mana completely refreshed. Time to keep pushing forward. He pressed on, absolutely trashing every monster in his path until he finally reached the goal. Behind that giant door waited the ultimate threat. Demon or giant snake, we're about to find out together. See you in the boss room. All right, stick with me here. He steps into the final arena chamber, hears a noise, and instantly tenses up as a massive shadow knight appears. The pressure was absolutely crushing. This monster was clearly on a totally different level. Glowing, blood-red eyes stared him down as the knight slowly stomped closer. Yeah, this guy was definitely the dungeon boss. Bell braced himself, on totally high alert. The Phantom Knight glanced at its blade, then flicked it in one sharp motion. Game on. Bell had literally a split second to react, or it was over. The opening strike was devastating. He managed to make some distance but had to dodge back-to-back hits. One clean strike meant death. The creature locked onto him again, forcing a huge jump backwards, but that gave him a window to summon his sword. Time for some payback. He found an opening and slashed the knight's back, but that armor was crazy tough. Piercing it was gonna be a nightmare. No time to overthink, he dodged and swapped to his only working strategy. Fire Spitter was easily his best bet. This time he would charge it up for 5 whole seconds. He just needed pure time. The second he was ready, he blasted the knight, hoping for a knockout. The blast landed a direct hit, but shockingly, it did absolutely 0 damage. Then he spotted a weird chest mark. Its magic resistance was totally busted. Bell was cornered again, surviving purely on speed, desperately needing some solid defense. So he whipped out his shield. It let him block a direct hit, but the raw power was terrifying. His hands were literally shaking. Now watch closely. The knight swapped attack patterns. A deadly overhead smash meant Bell had to move immediately. The Black Knight's sword slammed down, completely shattering the arena floor. Dust exploded everywhere, blinding the monster. A split second later, Bell popped back up across the room. He didn't have the mana to crack that armor. The dust hit his enemy until a terrifying glare flashed. Pure chills ran down his spine. The beast chucked its heavy sword right at him. Bell raised his shield just in time. The massive blade bounced away. Then he realized that attack wasn't the end. The throw was pure bait. The actual strike came from behind with 0 way to block. The hit connected, tearing his body with pain. Bell wiped out hard right at the monster's feet. Still not satisfied, the boss tried to literally stomp him flat. Running on fumes, Bell somehow managed a desperate dodge. The only thing keeping his legs moving was that elixir. Without it, he would be dead already, and now his safety net was completely gone. Meanwhile, the boss grabbed its sword. I know what you're thinking, how does he win? With 0 options, he bet everything on his heavy shield. That sparked an insane idea. If he juiced it up with wind magic, he could hurl it with incredible force. For once, the shield became a weapon. Actually, his strongest missile now, but his crazy plan almost choked. The Phantom Knight pulled an unexpected dodge, leaving our guy totally wide open. Nothing stood between him and that sword. Trapped, Bell knew he couldn't dodge, and without his shield he was defenseless. His one hope was the shield's flight path curving somehow. Then, catching the boss completely off guard, the shield boomeranged right into it, giving Bell enough time to duck. He lunged instantly, switching tactics. With his hammer, he aimed to finally break its absolute defense. The knight saw it coming but couldn't dodge. The hammer slammed down with crazy force. The creature fell, and Bell stood panting after the brutal fight. The shield toss was risky, but it worked. Now he just had to stab whatever the heck was inside that armor. But he hesitated a second too long, and the knight stood back up. Round 2. Suddenly, the armor plates started flying off, revealing the creature's true form, something Bell definitely didn't understand yet. Then the monster grabbed a latch on its sword guard and ripped out another weapon. Wait, it was a lock. The sword was still sheathed. Only now was its true weapon finally revealed. Belle had never seen anything like this, facing an even deadlier threat. The monster got insanely fast, and Belle barely kept up before being slammed into a wall. Absolute agonizing pain shot through his entire body. Unable to fight, he collapsed as the monster advanced. Trust me, you and I gotta see what happens next. Stick with me, we're diving straight into absolute madness. Belle's senses faded as the boss closed in for the kill. Barely breathing, he forced himself up. Staying down meant game over. Barely lifting his head, he saw a deadly slash coming right at him, but the attack was completely blocked. He actually used the gauntlet. Finally, this ugly creature's luck ran out. The boss was totally confused. Belle looked dead on his feet, but he still summoned his sword. He actually pushed the boss back. Now, the real fight was kicking off. They traded heavy blows left and right. Both got insanely fast, tearing up the entire boss arena. Without its heavy armor, the monster was actually stronger, but even that wasn't enough to drop Belle. With the gauntlet's power, he thought he could end it right here. Then, the boss's mark shifted colors, glowing a super intense blood red. Belle swung hard, but his blade just sliced an empty afterimage. He instantly knew he messed up, barely raising his guard in time to block a nasty counterattack. That freaky color change made the creature even faster, putting Belle right back under insane pressure. Still, he wasn't done yet. To win this, he needed way more power, but the more energy he soaked up, the more dangerous it got. This raw strength was crazy addictive. Now pay close attention here. A twisted shadow filled his mind. The gauntlet was completely cursed. To unlock its full god-tier power, he had to trade his very soul, and he almost said yes. A dark aura swallowed him whole as he started losing his grip. He felt himself fading away, while the creepy voice whispered for power. It told him all his pain came from being way too weak. That weakness is why people always crushed him, and why he even died in the first place. The voice said he should be sick of being a loser. It was time to just take whatever he wanted by pure force. Little by little, Belle's real self was slipping away. Seeing a perfect opening, the creature lunged in for the kill, but Belle's power suddenly exploded. Their blades clashed as equals, blasting a massive shockwave everywhere. Right then, he only cared about one thing, an absolute hunger to destroy everything. Winning didn't even matter anymore. He just wanted to break things, starting with this boss. After that, he'd crush anything else in his way. But right before he totally snapped, he remembered his sister. That one thought sparked his sanity back. He was still fighting this massive beast, but he knew he couldn't pay that dark price. His sister was still waiting for him. He wasn't fighting just to kill. He only wanted power for one reason, to protect her. That emotional anchor helped him snap back to his senses. He had to beat this thing and steal its power. Aegis was insane. Belle easily knocked the boss back. The dark spirit tried tempting him again, offering even crazier strength if he just surrendered his soul. Even while fighting his inner demons, Belle chose to keep swinging. The boss charged, and they clashed again in a crazy, high-speed blur of heavy attacks. You and I both thought he was trapped, right? Wrong. Belle was way faster. He snatched the weapon straight from its hand and cleanly chopped off an arm. That absolutely crushed any real chance the boss had left. Belle finally saw his opening and sliced the creature completely in half. Finally, the monster was dead, making Belle the undisputed winner. Crazy power still surged through him as the dead boss started crumbling away. With the epic battle finally over, he could strip off that cursed gauntlet. That fight pushed him to the absolute limit. He almost lost his mind. He knew he had to avoid using that gauntlet whenever possible. Suddenly, a tiny vial popped up right in front of him. His actual prize, ambrosia. If he chugged this, his mana would instantly jump to B-rank paladin levels, enough juice to finally use his divine weapons. He had never seen ambrosia before, so he was pretty nervous, but for a better future, bottoms up. At first, nothing happened at all. Then his mana just skyrocketed. It was wild. He literally hit B-rank in the blink of an eye. Then the agony hit him. The pain was so intense he could barely stand. His chest was pounding like crazy, and his whole body felt like it was burning. The scabbard glowed. Completely clueless about what was happening, Bell collapsed and blacked out. When he finally woke up, he was lying inside a giant magic circle. Still totally dazed, he had zero clue where he was. It felt like an entirely different world. Then a guy welcomed him, saying he was finally awake. Bell instantly realized it had been a super long time since they last met, despite the hood hiding his face. Bell knew exactly who it was. You literally cannot mistake your own master. And he wasn't alone either. A girl rocking a huge hammer, a mysterious dude with the gauntlet, and a badass knight with a sword. They all gave him a warm welcome. Trust me, we gotta see what happens next. Alright guys, stick with me. We are diving into the realm of souls. Seeing his master again was pure emotional joy. His master is Regis, the same name he gave Balon. Plus, he was the original wielder of Achilles' legendary shield. Seeing his master again meant everything to Bell, but he was honestly super confused. Since he literally time-traveled, how on earth did Regis still remember him? Regis explained he had been watching from up there. He actually saw Bell die and completely reincarnate. That wild answer just made Bell even more curious about where they were. Regis dropped a bomb. This space exists inside Avalon itself, storing divine armaments alongside the souls of every past wielder. Bell was totally stunned. He quickly asked what happened to his master's real body. Regis laughed, guessing his physical body was chilling in the mountains enjoying retirement. Avalon literally links to its users' souls. When Bell dragged it through time, it lost connection. But somehow, Regis kept his consciousness tied to the blade. Bell figured Avalon must have triggered his time leap, but Regis honestly wasn't sure. Normally, divine weapons absolutely cannot do that. Bell was shocked even his master had zero clues. Still, Regis gave him huge props for protecting his little sister. The praise actually made our badass hero blush a bit. Then Bell asked why he was summoned. Now watch closely, because things get wild here. Regis was about to explain everything, but another soul crashed the party complaining they were dragging it out way too long. His name was Riven, wielder of the fire spitters. Regis told him to back off, but the dude just said to relax. He wasn't some boring old stone golem. Bell just watched, super confused. Riven formally greeted the sixth successor, saying it was awesome meeting him. Our boy paused. He went for a handshake, only to realize he was being completely trolled. Riven was ridiculously chill, and Bell honestly had absolutely no idea how to handle him. Bell's total confusion just made Riven laugh harder, calling him too innocent. Then Charlotte finally stepped in. She pointed out the poor rookie was still adjusting to everything. Riven brushed it off as a harmless prank and asked Haru, but Haru was way too shy. Even as the fourth successor, he silently prayed to be ignored. Charlotte reminded everyone Riven loved annoying people. Riven told her to chill out, joking that staying mad would totally ruin her face with wrinkles. Charlotte was absolutely not amused. Regis tried playing peacemaker, but she was definitely fed up with his nonsense. Before she could snap back, Riven kept goofing around. Seeing his master act so casual felt super weird to Bell. It really proved how elite these predecessors were. He always heard they were legendary heroes, out fighting pure evil. Suddenly, the swordsman demanded focus. Adam, the first successor, stated this meetup actually had a serious purpose. They summoned him here for a huge warning. Bell instantly asked about it. You saw this coming, right? He desperately needed to learn proper divine weapon control. Fully awakened divine weapons release a mind-blowing amount of raw mana output. If he unlocked that power now, his physical body might not survive. That explained his crazy pain. He had to wait for his body to level up, but Bell refused to stall. He could not stop grinding now. He needed max strength just to protect his sister. Adam saw he wouldn't back down, so he decided to test the kid by completely crushing him on the spot. Adam moved so fast Bell had zero time to think. Suddenly, Adam was already right behind him. A brutal strike from the flat of the blade connected. Adam just wanted to humble the rookie, but he absolutely didn't expect a clean block. This made him seriously reconsider. Our boy really leveled up through his recent battles. Maybe he was ready, but he must master the sword first. All the successors were hyped for this. Bell asked if Adam finally accepted him. Adam nodded yes. If he stuck to using just one power, he might actually survive. He officially gave Bell the green light to unlock Caliburn's rank B skills. Those insane rank A skills were a whole different level. But trust me, you and I are about to watch this absolute madman try unlocking them immediately. Let us jump in. Adam totally loved that grit, and Riven jokingly wished number 6 luck. Everyone just hoped he could keep his little sister safe. Even the quiet kid kept watching him. They would all watch his back from the shadows. Time to return to his body. He woke up inside the dungeon. The pain was totally gone, replaced by this weird feeling. Gripping that sword, he was hyped to test it on some monsters. Frigga already knew exactly what that crazy blade could do. To reach those monsters, they had to take a boat. Halfway there, the dude warned that leviathans were about to show up. That meant it was time for a fight. But get this, he had zero clue the whole squad was plotting against him. Even the boat guy was in on it. The job felt super sketchy. Why send a rank B knight to hunt rank C mobs? And why would that guy even need backup? Obviously, this was a setup. Knowing a sneak attack could be deadly, our boy kept his eyes peeled and stayed totally on guard. They claimed they were close, but the area was way too quiet. Now pay attention here. The guy pulled a knife and our MC gripped his oil flask. Slashing his arm, the dude said they had to lure the beasts first. He used his blood as bait, claiming it drives them crazy. He was right. One monster popped up instantly, and then way more swarmed in than anyone expected. Since these were only basic rank C monsters, our hero suggested splitting up to protect the boat, but the other dude refused to leave him alone. Already suspicious, our boy asked why. That is exactly when the guy showed his true colors, proving our MC was the real target. He attacked instantly. A whip wrapped tight right around our hero's leg, and he knew he was in huge trouble. The attacker was one of the boatmen. He pulled down his hood, keeping that whip super tight. It was Spencer, a guy our hero knew well. The other dude yelled to finish the job. Using pure brute force, Spencer yanked our guy into the air by his frozen leg. This was definitely not ending well. He chucked him straight into the ocean, and Spencer was not done yet. He flexed his power to spread the ice out even more, making climbing back up practically impossible. Then the ice sank with him. They hoped the monsters below would finish the job. You and I know they messed up, but to them, he was already totally dead meat. He desperately needed air. To escape, he figured his shield could help. Since it could create wind, he used his magic to pump out some fresh air down there. Breathing inside his shield, he caught his breath. He never expected a double betrayal like that. He already totally distrusted Razor, but having a second traitor was wild. The surface was completely frozen, and that was not the worst part. Tons of monsters swarmed around. First up, he had to free his trapped leg. That shield should easily smash the ice. He finally broke free, but his ankle was busted. That nasty whip cut him pretty bad earlier. The beast smelled his blood, so he instantly summoned his blade. Outnumbered, sure, but it was the perfect training session. This was his very first major test since reviving, and he could finally flex that brand new skill. He aimed right at one monster. The sword started glowing. A huge blast of energy fired out. Glowing swords spawned all around him, completely wrecking the threat. Man, it had been forever. He summoned the stellar sword formation. Now he could finally enjoy the hunt. More beasts rushed him, but the flying blades blocked them, shooting straight at their targets. This was Caliburn's true power. It spawned glowing swords that flew solo and slashed just like the real deal. Soon those creatures would be wiped out, but things topside were not easy either. They were still fighting monsters while trying to stand on the slippery ice. 5 minutes passed since the betrayal. They figured the kid was history. Spencer praised Razor's genius plan as Razor easily crushed monsters, proving his elite level. He was glad they were on the same side, or he would have died like those mobs. Still, he thought the kid could have been useful. Then, the ice suddenly started cracking. As the crack grew wider, he leaned in to see what was up. Boom, he got attacked. Trust me, you are not ready for this. A massive hole blasted right through the ice. All right, stick with me here. A gigantic creature just surfaced, totally ready to eat them alive. A massive tentacle shot straight out of the water. He had to dodge super fast. This thing was a B-rank monster. You usually need a whole squad of B-rank paladins to take it down. One slip-up, instant game over. And this beast had way more than one trick. It fired an absolute barrage of projectiles. Our knight dodged them all, but now he had to deal with the incoming tentacles. He knew one single wrong move meant his total doom. The faster he finished this fight, the better his chances of actually surviving. His divine gear let him channel mana right into his weapons, blasting it out with every strike. Simple, yeah, but those explosions hit incredibly hard. He figured one solid hit would finish the beast, but this monster was way smarter than expected. The knight finally unleashed his ultimate strike, landing a direct hit right on the beast. But the result wasn't what he wanted at all. The creature literally used another monster as a meat shield. That just made the fight 100 times worse. Now his enemy was totally raging. His life was seriously on the line. He had to fall back to the boat. With the ice completely shattered, he had 0 footing left and 0 ways to get close. And now all the other water monsters were becoming a massive headache. They started jumping onto the deck, trying to wipe out everyone on board, so he had to shift his focus entirely to them. Because of that, he totally missed the incoming tentacle until it smacked him right in the face. His weapons just weren't built for fighting huge crowds at once. Even worse, this battlefield gave him 0 advantages, and he couldn't just ditch the boat either. He looked out as even more monsters started swarming all around him. The longer they stayed, the deadlier it got. But watch closely here, because what popped up next is even crazier than the monsters. Our main character burst right out of the water. Everyone thought he was totally dead. But nope, here he came surfing on his shield, smashing through monsters. Belle saw the backstabber struggling, while Razor was just mind-blown that the kid survived. Even after being played, Belle stepped up to help, though Razor didn't trust him. To Razor, this B-rank beast was way out of the kid's league, but Belle was absolutely about to prove him wrong. The closer he got, the more tentacles lashed out at him, but he wasn't going in blind. He was using the sheer power of Caliburn. Floating swords sliced right through every tentacle in his way. Seeing this, Razor was shook that Bell already mastered his weapon's special skill. That kind of wild power should have taken years to properly control. Bell flat out declared he would shred the monster and feed it to the fishes. The creature replied by gearing up for another strike. It fired massive water blasts, but Bell didn't flinch for a single second. If those blasts hit, the whole ship was done for. So Bell prepped his counter. He shifted the light blades, funneling them all straight back into his main sword. The scattered swords fused into one massive glowing blade, strong enough to fire off a totally concentrated beam of energy. The monster's attack clashed head-on with Bell's counter, but Bell wanted this win more than anything. His strike ripped right through the creature's body, and he zipped past as the blades shredded it. Finally, the giant monster was completely defeated. You saw that too, right? After that insane hit, it was game over, leaving Razor totally speechless. When Bell touched back down, he made it clear Spencer was up next for his earlier backstabbing. Gene's servant could already tell that this kid was gonna be a massive headache for his boss. Even after witnessing all that crazy power, Spencer still wanted Bell totally dead. He mouthed off that some punk could never beat a B-rank paladin. As Bell walked up, he couldn't believe Spencer still thought he could win. Since he had already used Spencer in a surprise attack earlier, Bell figured the guy was actually terrified deep down. For a split second, the two knights sized each other up, and then they rushed in. Boom! Their weapons slammed into each other. At first, Bell held his ground, but Razor quickly flexed the difference in raw brute strength. He launched the kid straight into the air. It was painfully obvious who had the muscle here. Razor thought that alone would end the fight, but Bell fired up his sword's special power, launching a blade of light at him. Knowing exactly how deadly those light blades were, Razor got serious real quick. So what do you and I make of this? Blocking one blade looked easy, but Bell sneakily set a trap for his blind spot. Razor used his own divine weapons skill and shattered the light blade. As it faded, he arrogantly convinced himself Bell would never actually land a real hit. All right, stick with me here, because taking down a B-rank paladin was never going to be easy. Bell's mana was draining super fast from spamming all those skills. That left him with just one final sword. Razor's veteran instincts told him the kid absolutely could not keep up that crazy power forever. That power came at a heavy cost. Razor charged in hard for the finisher. His first swing missed on purpose, but the follow-up combo landed a direct, massive hit. Bell was still super young, and his undeveloped body just could not handle taking a devastating blow like that. That massive gap in their raw physical strength was becoming a huge problem. He could have used that to finish him, but feared getting trapped in the dark. So he swapped weapons, blasting shot after shot at Razor, who flawlessly dodged every single one of them. That was the exact opening Bell was waiting for. Razor noticed the plan, thinking there was zero chance Bell had the speed to actually pull it off. But he didn't expect this crazy next move. Riding the insane recoil from those blasts, Bell closed the gap lightning fast, landing his slash way sooner. He almost chopped Razor's head off, but honestly just made him furious. Seeing that rage completely boiling over, Bell knew his epic strategy was working. While Razor was totally distracted, the final blade of light smashed right through his back. He never saw that coming. A hit like that meant game over. And honestly, you and I both know Razor totally misread the kid's entire strategy. Knowing his opponent was completely out of gas, Bell calmly walked over and told him it was finally over. He warned him not to try anything stupid, but straight-up surrendering was never in Razor's mindset. He truly believed Bell was a threat to his master Gene's future, so he had to stop him here. Hearing that, Bell asked why he was so obsessively loyal to his brother. That single question triggered a pretty intense flashback for Razor. In that past battle, he was absolutely wrecked, completely out of energy and couldn't even move an inch. He was at his absolute limit. Then a guy walked up, stopping by his broken body, instantly figuring out he was the mercenary behind all those major crimes. Using the last bit of his strength, Razor tried looking up. The young dude opened a tiny vial, pouring it over the wounded fighter. He told Razor it was his lucky day, because from now on, his life belonged to him. That is exactly why Razor stayed so fiercely loyal. Jean accepted him, and Razor believed he had to repay that massive kindness whatever the cost. Suddenly, he shattered the blade of light that Bell just summoned. As the glowing shards hit the ground, Bell realized his enemy had already made up his mind on how this ended. He initially thought Razor was just a thug, but now, he fully respected the man's knightly promise. From here on out, it was an all-out war. Razor was still burning with crazy rage, ready to duel, but Bell triggered a skill first. It was overpowered but needed time to charge up, so Bell went on the offensive, launching an instant attack. As Bell closed in, a sudden, lightning-fast movement caught Razor totally off guard. Taking a knee straight to the face, Razor realized he got played. Can you believe this? The guy was basically standing right on the edge of total defeat. Bouncing back, he warned it wasn't over. He had saved one last chance. He still had a tiny sword fragment left, and he slashed Bell's back from end to end. That brutal final strike left Bell completely paralyzed on the spot. Razor thought he destroyed every sword, but he was dead wrong. Bell faked it to craft his winning plan. It seemed like Bell somehow had way better battle instincts than Razor, which is insane. Without that hidden final card, Razor would have definitely lost. Still, Bell absolutely cornered Razor, a legit B-rank paladin. That alone proved how crazy his growth was. The ship kept sailing forward, until it finally hit the massive mainland city. Estera was desperately looking all over for her beloved brother but could not find him anywhere. She kept searching the castle, but zero signs of him. Even so, she didn't stop looking until she started wondering if he just hadn't returned yet. The weird part, his mission should have been completely finished by now. Then she noticed a pair of doors wide open. It was the giant library. Thinking her brother might be inside, she walked right in, but stumbled onto somebody else entirely. Jin stopped right in front of her, catching her completely off guard. Even as siblings, his aura was terrifying. She was super scared but still tried to say hi. When she opened her mouth, no words came out. That cold, razor-sharp glare literally left her paralyzed. As he walked right past her, Jin called her useless. Shaking with fear, she took a step back until she bumped into something, making her turn around. It was her brother. Her brother arrived, demanding what Jin wanted with Sarah. No answer. She finally relaxed. Trust me, you and I are gonna want more. All right, stick with me here. Her brother was finally back, and despite being banged up again, she was just so relieved he survived. Bell mentioned he had just clashed with a heavy hitter this time, a B-rank paladin named Razor. But get this, Jin did not even bat an eye after hearing that. Bell pointed out his trap totally flopped. Jin just brushed it off, calling all of them nothing but tiny pebbles standing in his way. That even included the goofy girl he called his sister. With that said, he announced he was moving forward. He did not have a single second for pebbles, but Bell was not quite done talking yet. He flat out told his brother that he would be the one inheriting the Duke's spot, since Jin could not ever actually protect this family. Jin whipped around instantly, hitting him with a death glare and unleashing this insanely harsh, hostile aura that totally swallowed the entire room. The pressure was absolutely crushing, but Bell did not flinch at all. A tiny smirk popped up on Jin's face. Totally amused, he chuckled, admitting that checking out the pebbles once in a while might be worth it. Walking out of the library, he casually told Belle to try and kill him literally whenever he wanted. Sarah was totally freaked by that exchange, but Belle cooled down fast. He knew exactly how terrifying that felt. That insane pressure felt totally unreal. His brother was straight up operating on a completely different level. You and I both see that massive power gap. To actually beat him, Belle has to reach that crazy tier before graduating from the academy. A few days later, his bags were fully packed and ready. The Duke was already waiting, and seeing the kid all set, Belle thanked his dad for the backup, since academy students basically required personal bodyguards. The Duke promised to send a B-rank paladin along with him. The guy immediately swore his absolute loyalty to Belle's service. Hearing that, Belle hit the Duke with one more request, getting the green light to speak. But before Belle could even ask, he was totally shocked when his sister randomly popped up with her own bags packed, ready to roll. She said sorry for running a bit late and dragged her suitcase right over to him. Belle's big request was actually to let his sister tag along for the ride. The Duke raised an eyebrow, asking why he would want that. Belle argued he did not want to ditch Sarah behind. He wanted them sticking together. The Duke instantly said nope. The academy only allowed bodyguards, and Belle was heading there to grind, not to party. Sarah still tried to change his mind, but their dad shut it down fast, telling her to drop it. So Belle pitched a wild idea, making her his actual bodyguard. He hyped her up, saying with Sarah around he could do anything, even body in a rank paladin. The Duke paused to process that, found the whole comeback pretty hilarious, and eventually just decided to let Belle have his way. Soon after, the carriage hit the road toward the academy. Sarah was completely mind-blown by the sights along the way until they finally arrived. The campus was absolutely massive and super impressive. Sarah felt so proud her brother made it here. This academy was strictly for nobles. Belle told her to study in his dorm while he attended class, but first, unpacking time. On the way, they spotted students practicing their sword skills. Even as a practice spar, it was perfect for scouting and learning. Sarah thought they looked pretty tough, but Belle easily noticed most were basically just D-rank scrubs. One student totally stood out though, and Belle caught that instantly. Still, the guy was only C rank, definitely not strong enough to outplay Belle. Pretty soon, only 2 students were left throwing down, and one was absolutely convinced he was taking the win this time. He dashed straight ahead, super hyped to finally crush his rival. Now watch this move closely. The guy did not even flinch, letting the attack get dangerously close, stressing Sarah out, before launching a counterattack that caught his rival totally blind. One single strike was enough. It did not even look like he whipped out a divine weapon. Belle pegged him as a B rank, maybe even a bit stronger than himself. The other students were totally shook too. The Rodwin representative was straight up incredible. Hearing that name put Belle on instant high alert because Rodwin was his family's longtime bitter rival. That automatically made Belle and Sarah their targets too. Shortly after, the academy's massive entrance ceremony kicked off. The fresh first years were formally welcomed and hyped up. The student council president gave the opening speech, making it crystal clear he expected these rookies to level up and become seriously overpowered. Albert was a third year, and his family line boasted famous paladins. Belle had not met the guy before, but knew Albert hit S rank at 18. It made Belle wonder if Albert was somehow tied to the incident. Maybe he was pulling the strings. Rumor had it Albert was an absolutely terrifying dude and already hitting B rank. The other council members looked just as stacked, and here is the kicker: the council was not picked by votes. It was made up of the top 4 fighters from the martial tournament, with the champ becoming president. There was zero doubt Albert was an absolute beast. So what do you and I make of this? Could this really be the guy who tormented him? All right, stick with me here. To stop those attacks, he had to show his enemies his true power. Since the council is picked by pure combat skill, Bell decided to join up. His goal, facing Albert in an epic battle. Later in class, he was just chilling waiting for the professor. This random kid walks up, asking if the seat next to him was taken. It was totally free. The kid introduced himself as Lime Flexil, hoping they'd have fun at the academy, but Bell instantly caught something super important. That last name totally rang a bell. Lime noticed his reaction and got curious. Bell just brushed it off, saying he was surprised. Fast forward a few years, Lime actually slaughters nobles for revenge, earning the title Knight of Retribution. But right now, he was just a timid shadow of his future self. Lime then asked for his name. Bell almost spilled the beans, but suddenly remembered his dad's strict warning about keeping their family house a secret. If people figured out his name, they'd totally give him special treatment. That would ruin his entire plan to prove his own worth, so he dropped a fake name, Lel Slayer. He planned to stay undercover until he crushed Albert. Hearing this, Lime totally assumed Bell was a commoner too. Their uniform badges flexed their social rank. A circle meant you were a commoner, while stars meant noble blood. Bell confirmed the commoner status, and Lime happily shared that his family was exactly the same way. At this academy, snobby nobles were everywhere and commoners were super rare. Since they shared a class, Lime really hoped they could be bros. Bell actually liked him. Lime would be an awesome ally. He never had real friends, so this felt great. Suddenly, some other kid rolled up. He clearly knew Lime and was just there to start trouble. Enter Roger. He instantly mocked Lime, sarcastically acting shocked to see his old pal. That nasty sneer said everything. Total disrespect. Same as always. Lime defended himself, saying he passed the entrance exam like everybody else. Now pay attention to this guy. Roger gives him a super fake congrats, making things awkward. Then he leans in, whispering that a commoner doesn't belong at Athena and should run. Lime visibly backed away from him, but Roger just kept pushing his buttons, basically claiming peasants should obey their masters. He bragged that someone of his high rank could crush Lime with just a word. Bell finally stepped up and told him to back off. Lime freaked out, super worried about his brand new friend. Roger spun around, demanding answers, but quickly spotted that Bell was a commoner too. The look he shot him was pure, nasty disgust. Bell told him to leave, noble or not. Roger pretended to walk away, then suddenly kicked Lime hard. Bell rushed over while Roger smirked. Bell called him a total punk, yelling that he had zero right to play paladin. Real nobles protect the weak, but Roger just laughed, claiming poor people only exist for the rich to use. Bell fired back that his mindset was absolute garbage. A noble house could collapse just as fast as a commoner. Roger looked hyped to use magic, asking if Bell wanted hands. His divine weapon was already drawn. You and I knew this was coming. Bell told Lime to back up, summoning his own divine armament. Roger was stunned. Bell was ready to literally beat some sense into him, but as soon as Roger saw the scabbard, he laughed even harder. He called it a trash divine weapon that couldn't hurt a fly. Bell shot back that Roger was worth even less. Absolutely furious at being roasted by a peasant, Roger decided it was time to end this. Bell was totally ready to see him try. The whole class was watching now. Roger charged while Bell waited completely calm. He tracked every single move. Then suddenly a woman stepped in, stopping the brawl with her lyre. That crazy sound completely froze them both. She ordered them to stop fighting and forced their attention. Bell had zero clue who she was, but she kept strumming that lyre. Then she introduced herself as Silva. She was from the Hellpage family, a marquee house ranked way above Roger. Right then, the professor walked in, ordering everyone to their seats. Class was officially starting. The very first lesson, a raw power test for every single student there. Using their divine armaments, they had to strike golems like real monsters. The first student rushed in, swinging his sword. But the golem was insanely tough. He only left a tiny scratch, and it literally healed instantly. Belle noticed that crazy region right away. More kids took turns attacking, but mostly being level E, they could barely even use basic elemental damage. Then it was finally Lime's turn up. Roger mocked him again, joking that his spear had 0 magic, and he was probably the only level F scrub there. Lime charges in, stabbing the target but gets thrown backward like the rest. Roger laughs, calling him useless, but trust me, you and I know this guy's potential. All right, stick with me here. Lime gets up and Roger steps forward to flex his real power. His divine weapon glows like a raging fire. With total confidence, he attacks, burying his scythe deep into the target and dealing some massive damage. A few students are totally impressed, and the teacher praises his D rank level. Oh yeah, Roger clearly thinks he is the absolute best in class. Next up is the blonde girl's turn. She finally steps right up to the front and starts playing her instrument. The sound waves hit insanely hard, shaking the entire classroom and wrecking the target even worse than Roger did. Man, those two are way above everybody else here. Roger acts super polite just because she has a higher rank, totally trying to suck up to the noble. She bluntly tells him not to bother. To her, everybody in this academy is equal. Titles mean absolutely nothing here. Roger is visibly annoyed by that. Next up is Belle. Roger is super confident the commoner will fail, because a scabbard by itself literally cannot do any damage. Belle calmly says he won't use the scabbard, casually draws Caliburn and launches his attack. Roger is left totally stunned. Wait, Belle has more than one divine weapon. Both the blonde girl and Lime look completely shocked too. Once the shock wears off, Roger notices Caliburn has 0 magic too. He fully expects Belle to hit the target and just go flying backwards. Now pay attention, because here's where it gets wild. Belle unleashes a lightning-fast storm of strikes that completely obliterates the target. When he finishes, there is nothing left but tiny fragments. The entire class is dead silent. Even the teacher is shocked. Belle shattered the golem without using any magic. Roger just cannot accept a commoner having this crazy skill. Meanwhile, Lime immediately rushes over to hype up his brand new friend. Belle just shrugs, saying it wasn't that hard and that Lime could totally do it too. Lime is stunned since he cannot even use magic yet, but Belle reminds him his divine weapon has massive potential. With hard work, he will be the best holy knight around. Lime blushes hardcore. Then the blonde steps in, suddenly asking about Belle's insane natural talent. She gets so uncomfortably close to him. Soon, all the other students start crowding around. Some claim they could not even track his hits, and one kid guesses Belle's sword might literally be the strongest divine weapon out of all the first years. Roger gets super nervous hearing that. The student panics, quickly backpedaling to say Roger's weapon is totally stronger. Yeah, that only makes Roger even madder. The lesson wraps up, and they announce the next class is going to be a live field test. They will be hunting real monsters in the woods behind school. Everyone needs to prep, but the class is still obsessed with knowing more about Belle. Roger summons his personal bodyguard, who instantly pops up. The guy looks completely exhausted and super gaunt. Roger actually brought a familiar for protection, and he fully plans to use it in tomorrow's test. When the knight asks if he seriously intends to unleash it during class, Roger basically says no problem. The knight praises his crazy boldness. while Roger daydreams about the pure fear on the faces of commoners and lesser nobles. He is planning to send that arrogant commoner straight to hell. The next day, the class preps outside the academy grounds. The local monsters start at F tier, plus some E tier beasts were released too. The mission is simple: hunt monsters, and whoever gets the most kills wins extra points. Roger is clearly plotting something. Once the drill starts, everyone rushes in to prove their worth, and the blonde girl straight up challenges Belle for that #1 spot. She had absolutely no clue Belle wanted first place too. He wanted the whole class to witness his insane strength. Lime begs to stick with him, totally scared to fight alone. Belle agrees, but warns him he is absolutely not holding back. They dash into the forest and quickly find several monsters. Honestly, they aren't even a real threat to Belle. He slices them like literal paper. The rest of the class is trying hard, but Belle destroys 15 monsters and feels like it's barely a warm-up. Lime is blown away by his partner's insane strength, but there's literally no time to chat. A monster sneaks up right behind him. Belle saves him again, warning him to stay sharp because there are way more creatures out here than expected. Lime knows he has to conquer his fear and do way better in this environment. Everyone is fighting hard, but he feels he must push further. Now, we both know who is watching from the woods with pure jealousy: Roger. To him, these commoners are acting way too arrogant, so he decides they are going to pay with their lives. He raises a staff to summon something, and Belle immediately spots the glowing magic circle forming nearby. Something massive is coming out, a monster that literally controls fire. It is a lethal, high-tier salamander. The students instantly panic at the sight of it. Most flee, but Belle holds his ground. Lime is completely horrified, frozen in place as the beast attacks. Belle blocks the roaring flames with his shield and tells him to run. "Trust me, you are going to want to see what happens next." All right, guys, let's dive into why a B-rank monster was crashing this forest. But Belle kept his cool, locking in and blasting his light sword straight through its super tough scales. Roger completely panicked seeing Belle's unique skill, so he doubled down and summoned his knight back. Meanwhile, Lime stood there totally stunned as the light swords trapped the giant salamander. Belle was actually pushing back this insanely overpowered beast. Belle moved in for the final blow, but the knight jumped in and totally ruined the shot. Belle instantly realized somebody else was hiding nearby. The knight stepped up, praising Belle's unique skill, making Belle connect the dots. He controlled the salamander. When Belle asked what his deal was, the knight straight up said he wasn't leaving without Belle's head. The salamander started hurling fireballs, while the knight went on the offensive too. Their attacks smashed together, completely filling the area with thick steam, which Belle blew away with a shield bash. But the knight totally predicted that move. He trapped Belle's light swords in a water prison, completely sealing his main ability. Yeah, that definitely confirmed it. This dude was a legit B-rank paladin. Now Belle was totally cornered between two heavy hitters attacking non-stop. He had to fight them both at once, blocking one heavy hit with his shield while aggressively slashing at the other. Even for a beast like Belle, this was way too much. Lime was frozen, but he knew his buddy would lose. Pay attention here. Lime spots Roger hiding with his family's summoning staff and completely rushes him, catching the absolute coward totally off guard. Lime demanded to know if the familiar was his, screaming at him to call it off before Belle got killed. Roger just attacked him, laughing and calling him a useless weakling who couldn't even help himself. Lime flashed back to his childhood training, failing at magic, and all the times Roger humiliated him. But this time, he stood right back up. Belle's encouraging words hit him like a truck. Taking his first real breath, he finally decided to step up. Roger just laughed, acting totally cocky that a bug couldn't beat him. Lime instantly snapped back, telling him to shut up and stop deciding his worth. For the first time ever, Roger actually looked nervous, even though he claimed Lime couldn't win just by learning basic magic. Lime completely agreed, knowing basic magic definitely wasn't gonna be enough here. Roger's scythe glowed brightly as he lunged for the kill, but Lime stood his ground looking completely fearless. His spear instantly froze the flames solid, totally wiping them out. Roger literally never saw that coming. It was super obvious now who the real trash was. Roger got absolutely furious, charging straight in, but Lime's spear was way too strong and stopped him dead in his tracks. Their weapons were completely deadlocked. Roger was totally freaking out over this, but Lime was perfectly dialed in. Using solid ice, he completely shattered Roger's divine weapon and brought him right to his knees. Let that sink in for a second. Lime used to fear this pathetic dude. Roger couldn't accept losing to an F rank, but Lime literally felt absolutely nothing for him now. He ordered Roger to hand over the summoning staff, and Roger threw a massive fit, yelling about whether Lime understood the consequences. He started flexing that his powerful family could easily wipe out Lime's entire bloodline. Honestly, Roger still had zero clue how badly he was losing right now. Lime just froze his legs solid to knock some sense into him, completely deadpan, demanding the staff one more time. With his fragile ego shattered, Roger finally handed it over. He pathetically begged for mercy, promising he'd never pull a stunt like this again. Total, absolute humiliation for this guy. Now the shiny staff belonged to Lime. He flat out warned Roger to stay away from him and Belle, or things would get way uglier. Lime finally let his guard down slightly, but Snake Roger was still secretly scheming. His weapon's chain was just close enough, and suddenly the far tip started glowing bright red. This absolute coward was attempting a nasty sneak attack. Roger seriously thought he could still clutch the win, but Lime saw it instantly and blocked the cheap shot easily. What an embarrassingly pathetic move. Without hesitating, Lime crushed the summoning staff right there, leaving Roger completely speechless. At that exact second, the giant salamander started fading away. The knight instantly clocked that something had gone terribly wrong with his master. From far away, he saw that Roger got totally wrecked. So he turned his aggro toward the other guy, but his movements were still restricted. He literally couldn't afford to drop his guard. Belle knew exactly who was pulling the strings. The knight tried taking him out, but in a fair fight, zero chance. All he could do was unleash blind rage, swinging wildly and missing completely. Things were looking bad. Even as a B-rank knight, he was bottom tier. Belle just walked right up and casually smacked him across the head with his sword hilt. The skill gap was just absolutely massive. Belle was on another level, so the knight desperately went for one final trick. He fell begging for mercy. What happens next here, we'll find out together. Stick with me here. The knight claimed he only followed orders, whining that challenging a noble is super hard. That cheap excuse was exactly what he needed to catch Belle off guard. He faked an apology, totally ready to backstab him immediately. Belle revealed he was totally faking it and raised his sword. He expected the trick. Lime ran over to his buddy, asking if he was okay. Belle knew Lime's backup prevented a total disaster. Lime told him he was just returning the favor. That firm handshake totally sealed their friendship. The other students rushed over super grateful, completely mind blown by Belle beating a B-rank knight. But wait, there is even more. That knight was secretly working with Roger and the salamander. What a total scumbag. Honestly, Lime started getting major praise. At the end of the day, he was crazy strong. Lime stayed humble, thanking everyone. They hyped him up, saying he would be an epic knight. Meanwhile, a blonde girl watching from afar clearly loved the show. She completely figured out how the dude's divine weapon worked. Now his task was finally done, and Roger would have to pay for his crimes. Down the hall, the girl was waiting. She really wanted to chat with our main character. Seeing her, he remembered her name, Silpha. He asked what she wanted. Watch closely, she dropped the name Avalon, his divine weapon, completely catching him off guard. She even knew it was the sacred weapon, wielded by legendary heroes from the past. He was totally clueless how she knew about Avalon, but one look at his face, she knew she nailed it. She was literally the first person to recognize his divine weapon. Her motive was simple. Our guy instantly tensed up, but then she put her hands together, bowed super politely, and asked to check out the weapon. He definitely did not see that coming. She always idolized the hero's weapon and just wanted a real-life peek. Since it was a harmless ask, he showed her the scabbard. She was starstruck, barely believing it was real. He asked how she knew all this. She explained her mom's family had legends about a hero with a scabbard holding infinite weapons. Maybe one of its past owners was actually in her bloodline. Lime still did not grasp everything, but he knew one thing: his buddy's divine weapon was insane. Silpha was hyped to check off a bucket list dream. As a huge thank you, she invited everyone to a local cafe. Lime was totally down for it, and our main guy agreed to explore the city. He agreed but said he was bringing a +1. Soon, the squad assembled. Sarah absolutely devoured her strawberry tart. Abel was just thrilled seeing his sister so happy. Silpha had no idea his sister was this adorable, and the compliment made Sarah blush hard. Seeing her smile made him ecstatic. He was honestly having the best time. Nothing like this ever happened in his past life. Suddenly, the blonde girl clapped her hands to get attention. She is about to play a song. I know what you are thinking, epic divine weapon music, right? Nope. Her lyre playing was absolute garbage. It was wonderfully terrible. Silpha totally knew she sounded awful just trying to make her new squad laugh. And it worked. Everyone died laughing, begging for an encore. Then she pointed right at Lime, demanding he step up and sing too. Together they basically entertained the entire cafe. It turned into a super fun mini show. These were his first real friends. Hanging outside later, they kept hyping the vibes. Then Silpha wanted to take Sarah on a massive shopping spree. He hated his sister going alone, but his friend declared it girls only. That left our main character feeling pretty bummed out. He just begged them to call if anything went wrong. Silpha noticed his big brother energy, and Sarah asked about her siblings. Her mood instantly tanked, admitting she was an only child. Right then, someone came hunting for Silpha. The guy's name was Evil Lane, student council elite, for the has siblings super awkward reunion. He probably should have been way nicer, but he literally did not see him as family. He showed up to drag her to training, claiming perfecting her weapon only benefited him. She fired back that fighting wars was not her vibe. He aggressively rolled up his sleeves, saying her sassy attitude was a massive problem. He looked ready to drag her away by force. Suddenly, blood started heavily gushing straight from his palm. Sarah was absolutely terrified. This crazy dude was controlling his own blood like magic. So yeah, his divine weapon ran on pure blood. Silpha called her bodyguard, but trust me, you are going to hate this. She looks back, and her bodyguard is already completely defeated. Well, that just made things way worse. Her brother demanded they leave right now, and she yelled at Sarah to run before things got completely out of hand. Silpha tried her best to block with her weapon, but that attack was just way too heavy. Realizing she might actually call for backup. You and I gotta watch this. He rushes in to end it fast. Sarah is about to get completely blasted, but our boy's buddy swoops in for the epic save. Silpha totally collapses from pushing her limits. It was super reckless, and now she is completely wide open. Her awful brother uses his magic to trap her, literally lifting her into the air. Sarah is practically shaking, and the blonde girl is already totally knocked out. All thanks to her own flesh and blood. Panicking, Sarah screams for our main character. He instantly rushes in, cleanly slicing through the dude's creepy blood tentacles. That sudden interruption catches him completely off guard, and Silpha finally drops free. Seeing that makes Sarah sigh in massive relief. Our boy demands to know what this creep wants with his friend. Their whole hangout is ruined. The stranger asks if he is actually friends with his sister. But whatever, he warns him to stay completely out of family business. Our main guy just tells Belle to watch the girls. Why? Because he has a face to punch, and he is about to handle this trash right now. That bold comeback definitely shocks the guy. He warns there is zero reward for protecting Silpha. But honestly, slicing those attacks was too easy, which low-key impresses him. For our hero, helping a friend is literally just basic common sense. Now pay attention here. Our boy attacks, but the dude blocks with a blood shield, claiming this is a total waste of time. That shield is insanely tough. A basic sword won't break it, and he absolutely cannot afford to waste his mana here. The guy is already firing off another strike, but our boy easily dodges. He is getting super annoyed. The villain says he'll end things fast and spams multiple attacks at once. Still, they are incredibly easy to read. So our guy pulls out the fire spitter. Seeing he has more than one divine weapon, the enemy finally realizes this is no ordinary opponent. Now it is our hero's turn to go on the offensive, and he effortlessly smashes down every single incoming strike. The whole fight has reached a total dead end. Just blocking attacks was making things complicated, but he is still dead set on kidnapping his sister. He forms a massive blood spear to finish this. Our main guy just nods. They both charge with everything. Suddenly, voices from the roof say the fight is getting super interesting. They look up and spot a totally new squad crashing the party. One guy jumps down so intensely, he literally shatters the stone pavement. He lands right between them, flexing his crazy strength, and says he wants to join. Our boy instantly recognizes him as a student council member. The blue-bearded guy asks what Seal is doing here, and he jokes about him being too rough. The girl totally roasts him, calling him a cringy weakling. Seeing his classmates, he stops his attack. Seal, though, he absolutely wants to keep throwing hands. His entire body starts glowing as he hypes up going all out. I know what you're thinking, armor time. Yep, massive armor covers him completely, giving off an absolutely terrifying vibe. The girl orders the muscle dude to do his job, while she literally summons heavy chains. This is just to stop him from doing something incredibly stupid. They definitely did not come to keep fighting. Feeling that wild magic power, our boy realizes this girl is just absurdly strong. Even so, Seal casually snaps those chains with zero effort. He explains Evely has duties with both the student council and Albert's company. Because of that, he is being sent on a month-long forest expedition starting literally right now. He realizes he has zero choice. Leaving, he threatens that he will return for his sister in exactly 1 month. She waves by, calling him a rookie. At least they left. That student council is just full of absolute monsters. He quickly checks on his friends to make sure they are okay. Silpha says she is unhurt and apologizes for dragging him into this insane drama. He brushes it off like it's nothing. What he actually wants to know is why she and her super toxic brother were fighting. The reason is pretty simple. He just wanted to use her. As the next heir, his big post-grad plan was invading uncharted territories to expand his lands. Lime knows those spots are absolutely swarming with deadly monsters. Her brother figured her divine weapon would be a massive asset in that war, but she seriously wants no part of fighting. She actually wants to get stronger and steal the heir title for herself. Honestly, in that way, she is exactly like our main character. The only problem, she still couldn't really do anything. She was nowhere near strong enough to actually beat that guy. Sarah totally disagrees, pointing out that Silpha protected her. Hearing those exact words sparks something deep inside her. Sarah is incredibly thankful for what she did. Our boy wants to thank her too, so he walks right over. So what do you and I take from this? Saving someone is true strength. Back in the day, he couldn't even do that. He tells her to believe in herself. If she isn't strong enough yet, she can just train harder. Plus, Lime steps up to help out too. Sylphan didn't know what to say, but he was super thankful for his new friends. That last attack was almost game over. You and I know Bell has exactly 1 month before his brother returns. He literally needs to unlock his unique skill right now. Which meant paying the comedian a visit. To grab some crazy new powers, he had to get permission from the predecessors in that mental space. He closed his eyes and zoned in completely. Pumping mana into the scabbard, the other predecessors welcomed him back. It had definitely been a hot minute since their last meeting. He came asking for a favor, but they already knew the deal. They watched that whole insane battle go down. That weird blood artifact was bad news. The guy could mold it into whatever he wanted, honestly giving off major Abalan vibes. Total silence hit the room. Then, the comedian chimed in, "Burn away that blood," and the whole annoying problem disappears. Our boy agreed instantly. That was the exact reason he needed his unique skill in the first place. The comedian said sure, then immediately pulled a prank. Seriously, this guy absolutely lives to troll people. Charlotte told him to quit messing around. But let's be real, that power level was way out of Bell's league right now. It's super awesome, but it completely drains magic. One try and his tank hits 0. Pay attention here because the comedian dropped a crazy condition. Before the rematch, Bell had to fire 300 shots daily. Only then would he help. That sounded straight up impossible. Bell maxed out at barely 100 daily shots. The comedian didn't care about excuses at all. Finish up, then come back. He snapped his fingers and Bell was yeeted back to reality. Okay, so the comedian was funny, but also kind of brutal. Bell quickly realized the actual massive problem here. Spamming that skill would burn 3 times the magic he actually possessed right now. Even the predecessors thought this challenge was basically a joke. There was literally no way to boost his magic that fast. But hey, they wanted to test his limits. Without a massive power-up, he had 0 chance of winning anyway. Bell headed straight into the forest and started blasting. Taking down monsters wasn't the hard part, but the physical grind was totally brutal. Hunting down monsters was basically his only known method to level up his magic. He kept rushing at everything that moved. His friends were totally blown away by his power, which totally motivated them. Everyone wanted to get stronger. He even convinced Lime to tag along. The hype to level up easily crushed any fear they had. Having ride or die friends really kept Bell pushing forward. But after 100 shots, he was totally wiped out. The house gave him a tiny recovery boost, but honestly, his progress was painfully slow. Suddenly, a terrifying roar shook the area. Definitely not an orc. Bell panicked, thinking his crew was in trouble. But when he found the beast, it was already down. His 2 friends were standing over it, totally celebrating their epic win. The girl praised Bell for his part in it. Bell was honestly shook that they actually took that massive thing down, but they did. Let that sink in for a second, a C-tier monster, way beyond their pay grade. Since they couldn't brawl it directly, they pulled off a genius trap. First, they froze it solid. She blasted sound waves, and the ice literally bounced them around. Perfect team combo. Seeing that crazy synergy sparked an idea in Bell's head. He finally figured out how to spam more shots. Right on cue, a whole squad of ugly orcs pulled up. This many enemies spelled massive trouble, especially since the team was running on fumes. But Bell got creative. He still had some fight left, and his next move totally blew everyone's expectations out of the water. While he rushed in, the girl remembered her own unfinished business. The predecessors were completely shocked seeing him back this fast. The comedian assumed Bell was begging for a deal, but he straight up claimed he was finished. They were absolutely stunned. Doing that in one day was impossible, and the comedian reminded him who was boss. Bell wasn't backing down, so they challenged him to prove it in a fight. He had to fire all those shots during combat, switching weapons if needed, unless he was chickening out. Honestly, Bell was totally thriving on this challenge. Just say when. Once that signal dropped, the showdown was on. The comedian was actually super hyped to see Bell's progress. The old man gave the word. Bell drew his gun, but the comedian shot first and totally tagged him, mocking his slow speed. Against the original user of that weapon, speed meant everything, and the comedian was definitely way faster. He was completely in full troll mode now, but Bell wasn't planning on losing. They traded shot after shot, and even the comedian looked impressed. Charlotte admitted the kid was amazing. So what do you and I make of this? The old man was finally proud of his student. Stick with me here. This real fight hasn't even started yet. Charlotte absolutely hated his tone, doubting if Bell had the guts to keep shooting. Adam totally agreed. 100 shots wouldn't cut it. Bell kept pushing his absolute limits, but the comedian wasn't even breaking a sweat yet. He never missed a single beat. Adam tracked every single shot Bell fired off. 97. Getting bored of the slow pace, the comedian got ready to wrap this up. But Bell had one last trick. Out comes the shield. That gave him some solid cover, and actually made the comedian double-take for a second. Bell was also gearing up to channel pure wind magic right through his gun. The comedian just smirked, asking what that was supposed to do. Bell shot back that regular bullets were completely useless now anyway. He buffed his shot with wind, totally overpowering the comedian's firepower. Even the big guy was caught off guard by that one. Maximum damage with barely any magic. For the first time, the comedian was getting pushed back. His master definitely didn't see that coming. Charlotte cheered him on to finish the guy off. But why hadn't Bell just spammed this broken move from the very start? Bell figured he'd been tricked before, so it was payback time. Still, just hiding his trump card wasn't gonna magically win the whole battle. Now he had to dodge an absolute bullet hell, and the fight was dead even again. Bell managed to counter the comedian's first bullet, and the guy's mana was finally dropping. Bell stuck right to his game plan. Watch closely, this gets insane. The battle was neck and neck. His opponent was sweating. Time to end this. But the comedian wasn't going down easy. He straight up vanished into his flames, making it impossible for Bell to track his actual location. Totally blind to where the shots were coming from, Bell got tagged again. Another clean hit landed, and then one more. As long as he camped in those flames, Bell was super cornered. So Bell blasted the fire away with his wind magic, completely exposing the comedian. No more hiding. Bell had a wide open shot, but he couldn't pull the trigger. Things got way worse. Bro was completely out of mana and exposed, but the comedian ran out of bullets too. In the final standoff, the comedian dropped to his knees, pushed to the absolute limit. Bell fired off exactly 301 shots, 0 gas left in the tank. A totally crazy clutch win. Seeing how insanely hard Bell fought, the comedian was actually super impressed. He reached out his hand. Bell totally earned his respect, unlocking the weapon's unique skill. Then, the guy kindly helped Bell get right back on his feet. Bell was super hyped to finally be recognized. With a deeper vibe for his divine weapon and a sick new skill, he knew for a fact he could crush that bastard. The comedian genuinely just wanted his student to catch a win, and Bell promised he would. A few days passed with pure forest training. He needed to get way stronger, slowly but surely dialing in perfect control over his brand new power. His squad rolled up to check on him. They were totally blown away by the unique skill, and the girl begged him to teach them. Bell just awkwardly admitted his only real training method was literally fighting monsters. Still, he did know a hack to buff their current power: daily practice. It was a neat trick his master taught him. Sit down, close your eyes, and focus up. Then do this exact hand sign. It makes mana flow through the body way smoother. If they meditated like this for an hour straight every day, their magic would skyrocket. It would also level up their control, making combat magic a total breeze. They decided to try. Pretty soon, his crew started channeling mana through their bodies. Bell realized they were leveling up crazy fast, maybe way faster than normal. He definitely couldn't afford to fall behind. So, he kept grinding his training, which naturally boosted his unique skill too. 5 days flew by with the squad practicing hard. By day 10, they were straight up sparring with each other to get even stronger. I know what you're thinking, peaceful training arc, right? Wrong. A month passes and Bell comes face to face with that bastard again. And this time, he wasn't just here to snatch up his sister. It had been a hot minute since they last crossed paths. Even the girl had leveled up her stats massively. The bastard ordered his goon to grab her while he personally dealt with Bell. The servant dashed in immediately, but she wasn't going down quietly. She fired back instantly with her divine weapon. The lackey was quick enough to dodge, but Lame wasn't letting his friend fight solo. He rushed the servant hard. He absolutely refused to let them take Alice away. On Bell's side, it was finally time to settle the score. He asked one thing first. What exactly was this creep planning for his sister? Her divine weapon was super rare, passed down through generations. You and I heard his sickening plan. Controlling people with sound as tools of war. Trust me, he's gotta go down. Stick with me here, guys. Hearing this dude treat his own sister like a cheap tool, Bell heard enough. A total scrub like that didn't deserve to be called a brother. He actually laughed, saying anger wouldn't trigger Bell's weapon. Well, Bell was ready to prove him dead wrong. The punk frowned at the crazy stance Bell took. Why? Because our boy aimed the gun right at his own chest and fired off his unique skill. Intense flames shot straight into his own heart, then blasted outward, covering his entire body. Pure, literal incineration, an absolutely unreal technique. The bad guy acted tough, but he definitely knew this was huge trouble. Our main guy got insanely strong, sprouting massive wings from his back that boosted every single physical stat off the charts. Now he could completely close the gap in a split second. The bastard tried taking a few shots, but it was totally useless. His fire melted right through those blood attacks, completely catching the guy off guard. Now our hero closed in to finish this mess, charging up for one epic bone-crushing punch. The villain panicked and threw up a shield that barely survived the first hit. It totally cracked. Zero chance it blocks a second one. And that gave our boy the perfect opening. He clocked him right in the face, sending him flying. His fancy blood powers were useless now, and honestly, the dude should have just gone home. But watch closely, because you and I know villains never stay down. He got up, eyes totally snapped, and his skin literally transformed like boiling blood. This insane new form pumped his power up, leaving our hero totally clueless about what he was fighting. It was pure dragon blood. It morphed his entire body into a crazy human-dragon hybrid, spiking his power level instantly. That heavy aura was a real problem. He told Bell to feel proud but also regret pushing him this far. Then, with claws out, he lunged forward carrying absolute rage. Bell watched the move closely. Thanks to crazy speed, he dodged it with just a tiny scratch, leaving his opponent super confused. He was so sure that hit connected. In that split-second opening, our guy charged up and blasted him point-blank with pure fire. Then he tried detonating everything. The massive blast filled the air with smoke, but the dude walked out flawless. He called it pathetic, rocking perfectly clean scales without a single burn. Then he charged in again, fully ready to shred our hero. Fire alone wasn't doing the trick, so Bell swapped to throwing hands as they clashed again. He had to dodge those nasty claws one more time. Only then could he counter, slamming a heavy hook right into the guy's ribs. Bell felt the bone-jarring impact himself, but the dragon dude barely flinched. Those scales literally tanked blunt damage too. While our boy was trying to process that, a surprise tail whip smacked him straight into the dirt. His enemy then charged up a massive spell, definitely strong enough to end him. Bell knew he had to block right away, chucking a crazy fireball just to save his own skin. But that dragon blast was way too beefy, triggering a massive mid-air explosion. Our hero was totally running out of gas. He pushed through, but he was hitting his absolute limit, and that dragon could spam attacks like that all day long. Which made this whole fight super bad news, since he'd have to burn even more magic. Let's pause a sec and check the lower floor together. His friends were fighting a super tough B-rank enemy, teaming up while this silent dude just waited. Lame rushed in head first, forcing the Dark Knight to throw up a guard. The kid slammed his spear into the floor, and suddenly the bad guy realized huge ice walls had completely boxed him in. This was the girl's perfect opening. She blasted him with heavy sound waves. It wrecked tougher monsters before, so they thought it was game over. But the knight called it totally useless. He tapped his staff, dropping a dark circle that just ate the attack. The squad was absolutely stunned. With the staff still planted, he prepped a wipeout move that spelled game over. The dark portal expanded and literally spit those stolen sound waves right back. Thanks to that busted absorption skill, their hits meant nothing. The girl was still processing the absolute shock when the knight apologized, saying his big boss ordered him to kidnap her. Lame totally refused to let that happen, but the knight warned him to back off. Obviously, he didn't listen, so the knight decided to just end him. Lame was just too green in real combat, and she could clearly see him getting outplayed. She desperately wanted to jump in, but her body was totally frozen while Lame just kept getting absolutely wrecked. She wished she had just a tiny bit more strength to fight back, and then our boy's advice clicked. So what do you and I take from this? Real power in battle comes from just taking a deep breath. All right, let's dive right in. He locked onto the magic flowing through him. Still ready to fight, he geared up to save his buddy. The staff was seconds away from completely crushing Lime's skull, but suddenly, wild sonic waves sliced straight through the air. He reacted just in the nick of time. No way was he dying here. The knight was totally lost on what was happening. It was the girl's sonic power. Lime heard it clearly, and the music she played was absolutely beautiful. That sick beat transformed into raw physical strength inside his body, letting him shove the knight backward and totally break his balance. The knight couldn't understand this kid's crazy strength. Lime's weapon glowed, ready to freeze him solid. Massive ice spikes erupted toward the knight. He sensed the danger but couldn't block it. The ice swallowed him whole. Midair, our boy was literally running on fumes. The fight was basically over, but then he saw his friends had actually secured the win. Now he just had to beat this bastard, even if it meant finally using his absolute secret trump card. The dragon, curious that the kid was actually holding back, just brushed it off. Pure desperation was creeping in. The battle heated up as the dragon spiked its power. Facing such a devastating move, our hero knew the final attack was coming. Still, he had his own plan to pull off. To make it happen, first he just had to survive. Now watch this closely. The dragon finished charging and unleashed hell. That energy blast was massive, way bigger and deadlier than anyone expected. Because of that, the kid had to move lightning fast to stay alive. Only one option left. He blasted his flames to dodge the hit, but the dragon kept pumping in insane amounts of power, way more than he could ever handle. He was totally overwhelmed. It really looked like game over. Though that wasn't the ending the dragon wanted, it had totally hoped for a much more exciting finish. Only then did it spot our hero behind it. It focused so hard on attacking, it completely forgot its own defense while charging all that raw power. The kid created a fire clone. The dragon destroyed the decoy instead, never expecting the boy to actually pull off a wild trick like that. Feeling like it was completely safe, it assumed the real kid still couldn't hurt it since his previous attacks were just way too weak. Now was the perfect time to flex his insane training. He had absolutely perfected his raw control over magic. The dragon noticed the boy's arm glowing with heavy mana. Past attacks failed, but this strike was gonna hit completely differently. The dragon glanced back, realizing way too late just how incredibly dangerous this kid was. You saw that coming, right? Those blue flames were his hidden ace. He smashed that fiery fist into its back, blasting agonizing pain straight through its tough dragon scales. It literally couldn't believe a kid had actually beaten it. A bit later, it finally opened its eyes, finding its body trapped in solid ice. Both the mighty dragon and its servant had totally lost. It took some time, but they finally woke up. The dragon thought the kids were annoying, but since it took the L, it just let it slide. Then the girl had something to tell it. She wouldn't let it start a massive war, and she'd never be its tool. To her shock, it actually agreed. It said it would do exactly what she wanted. That answer sounded so bizarre, nobody completely bought it. Still, Lime dismissed his divine weapon, and the heavy ice completely melted away. The girl told him to never see her again. Without answering, he just told his mech to tag along, and they both bailayed. That insane battle left everyone completely exhausted. It was wild that our guy actually beat a student council member, even if he claimed it was just by a tiny hair. The girl stood up and talked with them. Someday, she promised, she'd totally repay their kindness. But they told her friendship doesn't work like that, so she corrected them. They weren't just friends, they were totally best friends. Those words made our hero super happy. After the fight, the council might hunt them, so he needed a major buff to face Albert. He'd prevent another total tragedy. He'd become the absolute strongest here and flex all his raw power. He'd beat his brother, become the boss, and protect his sister. Years later, another wild battle started. Our guy found his brother, now stronger and the family boss. Jin didn't care about titles. He told his little bro about a dark curse. In his past life, he learned how painful failing your loved ones is, and that pure suffering was completely crushing. Trust me on this one. After tasting that kind of agony, he truly believed no enemy could ever step to him. With his sister's fate on the line, Mufasa and Scar were about to clash, and our hero went on the attack.